The fluorescent lights hum over Emily Carter's head as she slides her hospital badge across the granite counter, not to clock in, but to surrender it. Her fingers are trembling. Behind her, through the rain-streaked glass doors of Northbridge Medical Center, three black SUVs with government plates screech into the ambulance bay, tires smoking. Inside the ER, every heart monitor flatlines at once. Not a malfunction, not a drill. Someone just cut the backup power to ICU 3. The chief of staff is shouting into his phone. The security director is pulling a gun. And Emily, the disposable nurse they're about to fire for insubordination, is the only person in the building who knows exactly what's happening. She's seen this before, in Kandahar, in a field hospital that no longer exists on any official record. And if she walks out that door right now like they told her to, everyone inside this building will be dead in 11 minutes. Before we go any further, if you want to see how far this story can travel, drop a comment with your city. I want to know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and stick around till the end. You won't believe what happens next. Emily Carter had been a nurse at Northbridge Medical Center for 16 months, and in all that time, she had never once raised her voice. Not when Dr. Miles Greenfield yelled at her in front of a patient's family because she'd questioned his dosage on a post-op antibiotic. Not when charge nurse Diane Russo reassigned her to the graveyard shift 3 weeks in a row because someone has to do it and you don't complain. Not even when the hospital administrator, Harold Voss, called her into his office last Tuesday and told her she was creating friction by filing incident reports every time a physician skipped hand hygiene. She just nodded, took the write-up, went back to work. People assumed she was soft, convenient, the kind of nurse you could dump the worst assignments on and she'd just absorb it. They were half right. Emily did absorb things. She absorbed details other people missed. She absorbed patterns in patient behavior, in staff mood shifts, in the way certain doctors got quieter right before they made a dangerous call. She absorbed everything, filed it away, and waited. Waiting was something she was good at. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Wednesday when Diane found her restocking a crash cart in the hallway outside the ER. The charge nurse's face was tight, her mouth a flat line. She didn't waste time. "Voss wants to see you, now." Emily straightened, wiping her hands on her scrubs. "I'm in the middle of—" "Now, Carter." The administrative wing was quieter than the patient floors, insulated by thick carpet and the kind of recessed lighting that made everything look like a corporate law firm. Harold Voss sat behind a desk that could have doubled as a landing strip, his tie loosened, his collar unbuttoned. He didn't look up when Emily walked in. "Close the door." She did. He tapped a pen against a manila folder. "You've been here 16 months. "Yes, sir." "Boti." "In that time, you've filed 14 incident reports. 12 involved attending physicians. 2 involved me." Emily said nothing. Voss leaned back in his chair, studying her like she was a line item he was about to cut from a budget. "You know what that tells me? It tells me you don't understand how things work here. Northbridge isn't some field clinic where you get to play cowboy. We have hierarchies, protocols. You're a nurse, Carter. You follow orders. You don't second-guess doctors. You don't file paperwork every time someone forgets to wash their hands. You do your job and you stay in your lane." Emily's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. "My job is patient safety." "Your job," Voss said, "is whatever I say it is." He slid the folder across the desk. "This is your termination notice. You're being let go effective immediately. Collect your things. Turn in your badge. Security will escort you out." For a moment, the only sound was the low hum of the air conditioning. Emily stared at the folder. She didn't open it. "You're firing me for doing my job." "I'm firing you for being a liability." "To who?" Voss stood. "We're done here." Emily didn't move. Her hands were steady now, resting on the edge of the desk. "If I walk out of here tonight and something happens, something preventable, you're going to wish you'd listened." Voss's smile was thin and cold. "Is that a threat?" "It's a prediction." "Get out!" Emily turned and left without another word. She made it as far as the front desk before the first alarm went off. Not a fire alarm. Not a code blue. This was sharper, faster, a security lockdown tone that echoed through every hallway in the building. The overhead lights flickered. The automatic doors to the ER sealed with a hydraulic hiss. Emily froze. Diane was at the nurse's station, phone pressed to her ear, her face pale. I don't know, they just said to lock everything down. No one in, no one out. Outside, through the rain-blurred glass, 3 black SUVs rolled into the ambulance bay. No sirens, no lights. Just smooth, deliberate movement. Men in tactical vests stepped out, rifles low but ready, scanning the perimeter like they were clearing a combat zone. Emily's pulse spiked. She knew that posture, that discipline, that silence. She'd worked alongside men like that in places that didn't show up on maps. One of the ER nurses, a young guy named Marcus, was staring out the window. What the hell is this? Step back from the glass, Emily said quietly. He turned to her. Why? What's going on? Just step back. The doors hissed open and a gurney came through fast, flanked by 2 men in unmarked fatigues. The patient was male, mid-30s, unconscious, his skin gray and slick with sweat. There was blood soaking through a pressure bandage on his left side, and his breathing was shallow, erratic. Dr. Greenfield appeared from the trauma bay, annoyance flashing across his face. We didn't get a call. One of the escorts stepped into his path. This patient is classified. You treat him. You don't ask questions. Greenfield bristled. I don't take orders from... You do now. The escort's tone didn't change, but the weight behind it was unmistakable. Greenfield shut his mouth. They wheeled the patient into trauma 2. Emily moved without thinking, falling into step behind them. Diane grabbed her arm. You're not on the floor anymore. Voss just... I know. Then what are you doing? Emily pulled free. My job. Inside trauma 2, the monitors were already screaming. The patient's heart rate was 140 and climbing. His blood pressure was crashing. Greenfield was barking orders, but his hands were shaking as he tried to get a line started. Someone get me an IV, now! Emily stepped up to the table, her movements calm and precise. She didn't ask permission. She just reached for the patient's arm, found the vein on the first try, and slid the catheter in smoothly. Tape, lock, flush. 3 seconds, start to finish. Greenfield stared at her. I didn't. You needed a line. You have one. One of the escorts was watching her now, his eyes narrowed. Who are you? Emily Carter, RN. You always work this fast? Only when it matters. The patient's pressure dropped again. The monitors shrieked. Greenfield fumbled with the defibrillator pads, his face slick with sweat. We're losing him. Emily's gaze flicked to the monitor, to the patient's chest, to the IV bag hanging crooked on the pole. She saw it instantly. The line was kinked. The fluids weren't flowing. Greenfield hadn't noticed. She reached over, straightened the tubing, and the pressure stabilized. Greenfield exhaled, relief flooding his face. Okay, we're good. But Emily wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at the patient's hands, the calluses on his palms, the scar tissue on his knuckles, the faint tan line where a watch used to sit, high-end, tactical, removed recently. She'd seen hands like that before. Her stomach tightened. This wasn't just some VIP. This was an operator. And if he was here, bleeding out in a civilian ER with no advance notice and a full security detail, it meant someone had tried to kill him, someone who knew where he'd be, someone who had access. Emily glanced at the 2 escorts. They were standing too close to the door, their eyes on the hallway, not the patient. They weren't here to protect him. They were here to contain the situation. The door opened again, and Harold Voss walked in, his face tight. Doctor, a word. Greenfield hesitated, then stepped away from the table. Voss pulled him into the hallway, just out of earshot. Emily could see them through the glass, Voss talking fast, Greenfield shaking his head, Voss pointing back toward the admin wing. One of the escorts leaned in close to Emily. You good here? She nodded, not looking up. For now. Keep him stable. We've got a transport inbound, 15 minutes. He won't make it 15 minutes if that internal bleed isn't stopped. The escort's jaw tightened. Then stop it. Emily met his eyes. I'm a nurse, not a surgeon. You're whatever you need to be. And then he stepped back, his hand resting on the grip of his sidearm. Emily's pulse hammered, but her hands stayed steady. She pulled the patient's gown aside, palpating his abdomen, rigid, distended, blood pooling internally. If she didn't act now, he'd go into shock, then cardiac arrest. She grabbed a scalpel from the instrument tray. Greenfield reappeared in the doorway, his face white. "Carter, what are you—" "Step back. You can't just—" "I said step back." She made the incision, small, controlled, just below the ribs. Blood welled up, dark and fast. She suctioned it, located the bleeder, clamped it. 2 minutes, start to finish. The monitors quieted. The patient's pressure started to climb. Greenfield stood frozen, his mouth open. One of the escorts tilted his head, studying her. "Where'd you learn to do that?" Emily didn't answer. She just stepped back, stripped off her gloves, and tossed them in the biohazard bin. The hallway outside erupted in voices. Sharp, clipped, military. Boots on tile. Radios crackling. And then the door opened, and a man in a black uniform stepped inside. No insignia, no name tape, just cold, assessing eyes that swept the room and landed on Emily. He went completely still. "Carter?" Emily's breath caught. She knew that voice. The man stepped closer, disbelief flashing across his face. "We were told you were dead." The room went silent. Diane was staring. Marcus was staring. Greenfield looked like someone had just rewritten the laws of physics in front of him. The officer's hand moved to his radio. "Command, this is Apex 1. I need immediate confirmation on Sergeant Emily Carter, service number 44729. She's standing in front of me." Static. Then a voice, sharp and incredulous. "Say again?" "Emily Carter, alive, at Northbridge Medical." A pause. Then, "Lock down the building. No one in, no one out. We're inbound." The officer looked at Emily, something close to respect in his eyes. "Ma'am, we thought you were KIA 2 years ago." Emily's throat tightened. She could feel every eye in the room on her, could feel the weight of questions forming, accusations ready to drop. Diane's expression had shifted from confusion to something sharper, almost betrayed. Marcus had backed up against the wall, suddenly unsure if he should even be in the same room. "I'm not," Emily said quietly. "Obviously." The officer, she could see his rank now, captain's bars barely visible on his collar, shook his head slowly. "The report said you were caught in an IED strike outside Kandahar. Medevac never made it out. No remains recovered." The report was wrong. Reports like that don't get filed by accident. Emily's jaw tightened. She wasn't going to do this here. Not in front of Greenfield, not in front of Diane, not with a dying man on the table and a hospital full of people who had no idea what they were caught in the middle of. "Captain Briggs?" she said, reading the name tape she could now make out on his vest. "We can talk about my service record later. Right now you need to tell me why a classified operative just showed up in a civilian ER with a sucking chest wound and no advanced coordination." Briggs glanced at the patient, then back at her. "That's need to know." "I just saved his life. I'd say I need to know." Briggs hesitated. Then he stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "He was supposed to be in a safe house 20 miles from here. Someone leaked his location. Ambush went bad. He took 2 rounds before his team could extract him. Closest secure facility is 3 hours out. This was the only option." "Who leaked it?" "That's what we're trying to figure out." Emily's mind was already moving, piecing together timelines, access points, the way Voss had looked when he walked into this room. The way he'd pulled Greenfield aside, whispering urgently, his face tight with something that wasn't just concern. How many people knew he was being moved? Classified? "Captain, if someone inside this hospital is involved, we're handling it." "Are you?" Emily gestured toward the hallway, where more armed personnel were now stationed at every exit. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you just locked down a building full of civilians with a potential hostile still inside." Briggs's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Acknowledgement, maybe. Or the faint edge of doubt. "Stay with the patient," he said. "Don't let anyone in this room unless they're wearing one of these." He tapped his vest. "Understood?" Emily nodded. Briggs turned and left, barking orders into his radio as he moved down the hallway. The 2 escorts remained, flanking the door like statues. Diane stepped up beside Emily, her voice low and strained. "What the hell was that?" "Exactly what it sounded like." "You were in the military?" "I was a combat medic." "And you didn't think to mention that when you applied here?" Emily checked the patient's vitals, adjusted the IV drip. It didn't come up. It didn't, Diane's voice cracked. Emily, they think you were dead. How does that even happen? It's complicated. Complicated? We've been working together for over a year and I didn't even know you. Diane? Emily turned to face her, and the look in her eyes was enough to stop the charge nurse mid-sentence. I need you to trust me right now. Can you do that? Diane stared at her, a dozen emotions crossing her face. Anger, confusion, fear, something that might have been hurt. Finally, she nodded. Good. I need you to go back to the nurse's station and pull up the access logs for the last 72 hours. Anyone who entered the ICU, the pharmacy, or the records room. Print them if you can, but memorize them if you can't. Why? Because someone in this building knew that patient was coming before he got here. Diane's face went pale. You think someone here set him up? I think someone here had access to information they shouldn't have, and I think that same person is going to try to finish what they started. Emily, if that's true, we need to tell... We don't know who to trust yet. The words hung in the air between them. Diane swallowed hard, then nodded again. She left without another word. Marcus was still pressed against the wall, his eyes wide. Do you need me to? Go help Diane, Emily said. And Marcus, don't tell anyone what you just heard. He nodded quickly and slipped out. Emily turned back to the patient. His breathing was steadier now, his color slightly better. She pulled back the blanket and checked the bandage she'd applied. Clean. No fresh bleeding. The clamp was holding. She'd bought him time, maybe an hour, maybe less. Her hands moved on autopilot, checking lines, adjusting monitors, noting changes in rhythm and pressure. But her mind was somewhere else, running through scenarios, probabilities, the cold calculus of threat assessment she'd learned in a tent hospital under mortar fire. If the ambush was coordinated, the leak had to come from someone with access to secure channels. Military intelligence, maybe? Or someone with a direct line to someone in military intelligence. Voss had connections. She'd seen the photos in his office, senators, defense contractors, hospital board members who also sat on advisory councils for half a dozen government agencies. She'd written him off as a bureaucrat, a petty tyrant who cared more about liability than lives. But what if it was more than that? The door opened again. Emily's hand instinctively moved toward the scissors on the instrument tray. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. It was just Greenfield. He looked shaken, his usual arrogance stripped away, leaving something raw and uncertain underneath. Boss wants to see you, he said. I'm busy. He said it's urgent. So is this. Greenfield stepped closer, dropping his voice. Carter, what's going on? Those men out there, they're not regular military. And the way they're acting, the way they're locking down the building, this isn't a normal transport. Emily met his eyes. For the first time since she'd started working here, she saw something other than condescension in his expression. She saw fear. No, she said quietly. It's not. Then what is it? Something way above your pay grade. And mine. But you know, don't you? You know what this is. Emily didn't answer. Greenfield ran a hand through his hair, his composure cracking. I've been a doctor for 15 years. I've seen car accidents, shootings, overdoses. Hell, I did a rotation in a field hospital in Iraq. But this feels different. This feels like we're in the middle of something we're not supposed to see. We're not. Then why are we still here? Because someone decided this was the safest place to bring him, or the most convenient. Greenfield's face went pale. You think this was planned? You think someone wanted him here? I think someone wanted him somewhere, and this hospital was it. Why? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Greenfield looked down at the patient, then back at Emily. What do you need me to do? The question caught her off guard. In 16 months, Greenfield had never once asked her what she needed. He'd ordered, delegated, dismissed, but he'd never asked. Go see Voss, she said. Find out what he wants. But don't tell him anything about what just happened in this room. If he asks about the patient, tell him he's stable and under guard. That's it. And if he pushes, then push back. You're a doctor. Act like one. Greenfield nodded slowly, then left. Emily was alone now, except for the two silent escorts and the unconscious man on the table. She pulled up a stool and sat down, close enough to monitor him, far enough to see the door. She checked her watch. 12:14 a.m. Briggs had said transport was 15 minutes out. That was 20 minutes ago. Either they were delayed or they weren't coming. Her hand moved to her pocket, to the small folding knife she always carried. Hospital policy said no weapons on the floor. She'd ignored that rule from day one. The overhead lights flickered. Both escorts stiffened, hands moving to their weapons. "Backup generator," one of them said. "It's fine." But Emily didn't think it was fine. She stood, moving to the window. The parking lot was lit by streetlights and the headlights of the SUVs, but beyond that, the surrounding streets were dark. Too dark. Like someone had cut the power to the entire block. "We need to move him," she said. The escorts didn't respond. "I said we need to move him, now." One of them turned to her. "Our orders are to hold position until transport arrives. Transport isn't coming, or if it is, someone's going to make sure it doesn't get here in time." "Ma'am, we have this under control." "Do you?" The lights went out. Not just in the room, in the entire building. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, casting everything in a red glow. The patient's monitor switched to battery power, still beeping steadily. "Stay here," one of the escorts said, and both of them moved toward the door. "Don't," Emily started, but they were already gone, disappearing into the hallway. She was alone. She grabbed the gurney and unlocked the wheels, ready to move, but then she heard it. Footsteps. Not boots. Not the heavy, disciplined march of military personnel. These were softer, deliberate. Coming from the stairwell at the end of the hall. Emily's pulse hammered. She moved to the door, cracked it open, peered out. The hallway was empty. The escorts were gone. The nurse's station was dark, and at the far end of the corridor, silhouetted against the red emergency lights, a figure was moving toward her. Slow, calm, certain. Emily's breath caught. The figure stopped just outside the circle of light. She couldn't make out a face, but she could see the outline of something in their hand. Not a gun, a syringe. Emily stepped back into the room and locked the door. Her mind raced. She had maybe 60 seconds before whoever that was reached her. The patient couldn't be moved fast enough. The window didn't open. There was one door and it was about to be breached. She looked around the room, cataloging everything she could use. Scalpel, scissors, IV pole, defibrillator, a crash cart with enough medication to stop a heart or restart one. Her eyes landed on the patient, and then she understood. This wasn't about capturing him. It was about making sure he never woke up. The door handle rattled. Emily grabbed the scalpel and positioned herself between the door and the gurney. The lock clicked open. The door swung wide. And standing in the doorway, backlit by red emergency lights, was Harold Voss. He was holding the syringe. "Step away from the patient, Emily." She didn't move. Voss's expression was calm, almost apologetic. "This doesn't have to be difficult. Just step aside." "What's in the syringe?" "Potassium chloride. Quick, painless. He won't feel a thing." "You're going to kill him." "I'm going to finish what should have been finished 2 hours ago." Emily's grip tightened on the scalpel. "Why?" "Because he knows things that certain people would prefer stay buried. And you're one of those people." Voss smiled faintly. "I'm just the middleman. I make introductions, facilitate transactions, ensure that information flows to the right buyers. You sold him out." "I sold his location to someone willing to pay for it. What happened after that wasn't my concern. But now he's here, in my hospital, and that makes him my problem. So I'm going to solve it." "Not while I'm standing here," Voss sighed. "Emily, you're a good nurse, competent, dedicated, but you're out of your depth. You don't understand what's at stake." "Then explain it to me." "There are networks, agreements, systems that keep the world running smoothly. Sometimes people like him," he gestured toward the patient, "threaten those systems. And when that happens, they need to be removed. By people like you. By people who understand how things really work." Emily's voice was cold. "You're a traitor." Voss's smile faded. "I'm a realist, and you're in my way." He stepped forward. Emily raised the scalpel. "One more step, and I'll put this through your throat." Voss stopped. For a moment they stood there, locked in place. Then he laughed. "You won't. You're a nurse. You save lives. You don't take them. You'd be surprised what I'm capable of." Something in her tone made him hesitate. He studied her face, and for the first time she saw doubt flicker across his expression. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. "Someone you should have left alone." Voss's hand tightened on the syringe. He took another step. Emily moved. Not toward him, toward the crash cart. She grabbed the defibrillator, flipped the power switch, and jammed the paddles against the metal IV pole. The discharge was immediate, a sharp crack of electricity that arced through the pole and into the floor. The lights in the room surged, then died completely. In the darkness, Emily heard Voss stumble, heard the syringe hit the floor and roll. She didn't wait. She moved by memory, by instinct honed in field hospitals, where the power went out more often than it stayed on. She reached the gurney, unlocked the wheels, and shoved it toward the door. Voss shouted something, but she was already in the hallway, pushing the patient toward the emergency stairs. Behind her she heard boots. Not Voss. Someone else. Someone faster. She hit the stairwell door with her shoulder, shoved the gurney through, and let the door slam shut behind her. The stairwell was pitch black except for the faint glow of an exit sign 2 floors down. She couldn't take the gurney down the stairs. It was too heavy, too awkward. She'd have to leave it, but if she left it, Voss would find the patient, and if Voss found him, he'd finish what he came to do. Emily made a decision. She grabbed the patient under the arms and hauled him off the gurney, slinging him over her shoulder in a fireman's carry. 200 pounds of dead weight. Her knees buckled, but she steadied herself, gripped the railing, and started down the stairs. 1 step, 2. Her legs screamed, her back burned. 3, 4. The door above her slammed open. "There!" Footsteps, fast and heavy, coming down after her. Emily didn't look back. She just kept moving. 5 steps, 6. She hit the landing and nearly collapsed. Her vision blurred. Her lungs were on fire. But she could see the exit door now, just 1 more flight down. She pushed off the wall and kept going. The footsteps were closer now. She could hear breathing, could feel the vibration of boots on metal stairs. 7, 8, 9. She reached the door, slammed into it, and stumbled out into the ground floor hallway. The emergency lights were on here too. She could see the exit ahead, could see the rain still coming down outside. She ran. Halfway to the door, a hand grabbed her shoulder and spun her around. She dropped the patient, let him slide to the floor, and came up swinging. Her fist connected with something solid. A jaw. The man staggered back. Emily didn't stop. She hit him again, then swept his leg and dropped him hard on the tile. He didn't get up. She turned back to the patient, hauled him up again, and made it 3 more steps before she heard the voice. "Emily, stop!" She froze. Captain Briggs was standing in the hallway, flanked by 4 armed soldiers. Their rifles weren't raised, but they were ready. "Put him down," Briggs said. Emily's breath came in ragged gasps. "Voss is trying to kill him." "I know." "Then why are you stopping me?" "Because we need you to stay exactly where you are." And that's when she heard it. The sound of more boots, more voices, coming from every direction. The hallway filled with personnel, military, federal agents, people in suits with badges she didn't recognize. And in the middle of them, hands cuffed behind his back, was Harold Voss. His face was pale. His eyes were wide. He looked at Emily, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked afraid. Briggs stepped forward. "Sergeant Carter, you can put him down now. We've got it from here." Emily lowered the patient to the floor, her legs finally giving out. She sat down hard, her back against the wall, her chest heaving. Briggs crouched beside her. "You okay?" She nodded, even though she wasn't sure that was true. "You saved his life," Briggs said. "Twice. That's going in the report." "What happens now?" "Now we clean this up. And you get to explain how a dead woman ended up working in a civilian hospital for 16 months without anyone noticing." Emily closed her eyes. "It's a long story. I've got time." But before he could say anything else, one of the agents approached holding a tablet. "Captain, you need to see this." Briggs stood, took the tablet, and his face went cold. "What is it?" Emily asked. Briggs didn't answer right away. He just stared at the screen, his jaw tight. Finally, he looked at her. Voss wasn't working alone. The breach goes deeper than we thought. How deep? Briggs turned the tablet around. On the screen was a photo. A man in a military uniform. Someone Emily recognized. Someone she'd trusted. Someone who was supposed to be dead. Her stomach dropped. No, she whispered. Briggs's expression was grim. We need to talk, right now. The face on the screen belonged to Major Daniel Cross, Emily's former commanding officer, the man who'd pinned her meritorious service medal on her chest in a ceremony held inside a reinforced bunker because going outside meant risking sniper fire. The man who'd written her discharge papers after the explosion that was supposed to have killed her. The man who'd visited her in the hospital 3 days before she disappeared and told her the only way she'd survive was to stay dead. Emily's hands went numb. Briggs was watching her carefully, reading every micro-expression that crossed her face. You know him. It wasn't a question. I knew him, Emily said. Her voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else. Past tense. When's the last time you had contact? 2 years ago. The day I was discharged. And you haven't heard from him since? I was dead. Dead people don't get phone calls. Briggs glanced at the tablet again, then back at her. Cross has been operating a network for the last 18 months, selling classified intel to foreign contractors, facilitating black market arms deals, running interference for people who pay well enough. Voss was one of his assets. Low level, but useful. Access to a major hospital means access to patients who might need to disappear, records that need to be altered, personnel willing to look the other way for the right price. Emily's mind was racing, trying to fit the pieces together. Cross had always been ambitious, always pushing for the next promotion, the next commendation. But selling out? That didn't fit. Or maybe it did, and she'd just been too close to see it. How long have you known? She asked. About Cross? 6 weeks. About Voss? 3 days. We've been building a case, tracking transactions, mapping the network. Tonight was supposed to be a controlled extraction, get our operative out, gather evidence, close the trap. But someone accelerated the timeline. Cross. That's our working theory. Emily pushed herself to her feet, her legs still shaky but holding. The patient. Who is he? Briggs hesitated. Captain, I just carried him down 2 flights of stairs while someone was trying to put a syringe in his neck. I think I've earned the right to know. His name is Lieutenant Marcus Hale. He was embedded in Cross's operation for 4 months, gathering intel. 2 days ago, his cover got burned. He made it out with a hard drive containing financial records, communications logs, and a list of every person Cross has on his payroll. That's why they want him dead. And that's why we need him alive. Emily looked down at the unconscious man on the floor. Hale's face was slack, his breathing shallow but steady. He looked younger up close, maybe late 20s, too young to be carrying the kind of secrets that got people killed. Where's the hard drive now? She asked. We don't know. He didn't have it on him when we found him. Then it's still out there. Yeah. Emily ran a hand through her hair, trying to think. If Hale had ditched the drive before the ambush, it meant he knew he was compromised. Smart. But it also meant the drive could be anywhere. Buried in a safe house, stashed in a locker, handed off to someone he trusted. Or someone Cross trusted. You need to find it before Cross does, Emily said. That's the plan. But first we need to secure this building and make sure there aren't any more of Voss's people still inside. As if on cue, one of the agents approached, holding a radio. Captain, we've got a situation on the 3rd floor. One of the staff is refusing to cooperate, says she won't leave her patients. Briggs swore under his breath. Who? Charge nurse, Diane Russo. Emily's stomach tightened. I'll handle it. Carter, you're not... She'll listen to me. And if there's anyone else in this building working for Voss, she'll know. Let me talk to her. Briggs studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Fine, but you take an escort. 2 soldiers fell into step behind Emily as she headed for the stairs. The building was still on emergency power, the hallways bathed in red light that made everything look like a crime scene, which she supposed it was. The 3rd floor was quieter than the ground level. The only sounds, the hum of backup generators and the occasional beep of a patient monitor. Emily found Diane at the nurse's station, arms crossed, facing down a federal agent who looked like he was 2 seconds away from putting her in handcuffs. I don't care what your orders are, Diane was saying, her voice tight with fury. I have 12 patients on this floor, half of them post-op, and I'm not leaving them alone in the dark while you people... Diane? The charge nurse spun around, relief and anger warring on her face. Emily, thank God. Tell these idiots they can't just evacuate medical staff in the middle of the night without... They can, and they are. Diane's mouth snapped shut. Emily stepped closer, lowering her voice. This isn't a drill. This isn't bureaucracy. There are people in this building who tried to kill a patient tonight, and we don't know if they're all accounted for. You need to go. What about the patients? They're bringing in a medical team, military doctors. They'll be here in 10 minutes. And you trust them? More than I trust anyone who's been working here for the last 16 months. The words landed like a slap. Diane's face went pale. You think someone on staff? I know someone on staff sold out a federal operative. Voss wasn't working alone. Diane's hands were shaking now, but she nodded. Okay, I'll go. But Emily, those access logs you asked me to pull, I got them. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, pressing it into Emily's hand. 3 people accessed restricted areas in the last 72 hours outside of normal rotations. Voss, Dr. Greenfield, and someone from IT named Aaron Webb. Emily's breath caught. She didn't know Webb well. He was one of those guys who floated around fixing computers and resetting passwords, invisible until something broke. But if he had access to the hospital's network, he could manipulate records, delete logs, cover tracks. Where is he now? Emily asked. I don't know. He clocked out 2 hours ago, right before the lockdown, which meant he was either long gone or still in the building, hiding. Emily turned to one of the soldiers behind her. I need you to find Aaron Webb. White male, late 20s, works in IT. If he's still here, bring him in. If he's not, put out an alert. The soldier nodded and spoke into his radio. Emily turned back to Diane. Go, now, and don't come back until someone in a uniform tells you it's safe. Diane hesitated, then pulled Emily into a quick, fierce hug. Don't get yourself killed. I'll try. Diane left, escorted by the agent, and Emily was alone in the hallway. She unfolded the paper Diane had given her and scanned the list. Voss's entries were predictable. Admin wing, records room, pharmacy. Greenfield's were less so. He'd accessed the ICU at 2:14 a.m. 3 days ago, well outside his normal shift, and Webb had been in the server room at 3 a.m. the same night. Emily's pulse quickened. That was the night before Hale showed up, which meant someone had been preparing, altering records maybe, or setting up a way to monitor communications. She needed to get to that server room. She headed for the stairwell, moving fast but quiet. The server room was in the basement, tucked behind the maintenance offices where most staff never went. Emily had only been down there once, during orientation, when Webb had given her login credentials and a 5-minute lecture on password security that she'd tuned out halfway through. The basement was colder than the upper floors, the air heavy with the smell of disinfectant and old concrete. Emergency lighting down here was sparser, leaving long stretches of shadow between each dim bulb. Emily moved carefully, her hand resting on the folding knife in her pocket. She passed the laundry room, the storage closets, the maintenance office with its door hanging half open. The server room was at the end of the hall, behind a door marked Authorized Personnel Only. Emily tried the handle. Locked. She pulled a paperclip from her pocket. She'd carried one ever since a supply closet door jammed shut on her during her first week, and worked it into the lock. 15 seconds later, the mechanism clicked. The server room was small, barely 10 feet across, lined with racks of humming equipment and blinking lights. The temperature was at least 10 degrees cooler than the hallway, kept that way by a dedicated AC unit that was still running despite the power outage. Emily stepped inside and closed the door behind her. There was a workstation in the corner, the monitor still on, displaying a login screen. She moved toward it, then froze. Someone was already here. The realization hit her a fraction of a second before she heard the breath behind her, felt the air shift. She spun, knife out, but she wasn't fast enough. A hand caught her wrist, twisted it hard. The knife clattered to the floor. Another hand grabbed her shoulder and slammed her against the server rack. Metal dug into her spine. Her vision blurred. Aaron Webb's face swam into focus, close enough that she could smell coffee on his breath. He didn't look invisible now. He looked wired, desperate, his eyes too wide and his grip too tight. "I told them you'd be a problem," he said. Emily drove her knee up, aiming for his groin, but he twisted away and shoved her harder against the rack. Something in her back popped. Pain shot down her leg. "Who told you?" she gasped. "Cross. He said if you showed up, if you were still alive, I was supposed to finish it." "Finish what?" "What should have been done 2 years ago." Webb reached into his pocket and pulled out a syringe, the same kind Voss had been carrying. Potassium chloride, probably. Fast and hard to trace if you didn't know what you were looking for. Emily's mind raced. She was pinned, disarmed, and running out of time. Webb outweighed her by at least 50 pounds, and his grip was solid. But he was also an IT guy, not a soldier. He knew computers, not combat. And he'd made a mistake. He was standing too close. Emily stopped struggling, let her body go slack like she was giving up. Webb relaxed slightly, shifting his weight to uncap the syringe with his teeth. That was when Emily moved. She snapped her head forward, smashing her forehead into his nose. Cartilage crunched, blood sprayed. Webb staggered back, the syringe falling from his hand. Emily didn't give him time to recover. She grabbed a keyboard from the workstation and swung it like a club, catching him across the temple. He went down hard, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Emily stood over him, breathing hard, the keyboard still in her hand. Webb groaned, blood streaming from his nose, but he didn't get up. She kicked the syringe away, then grabbed a zip tie from a tool drawer and secured his hands behind his back. He was conscious but dazed, mumbling something she couldn't make out. "Shut up," she said. She pulled out her phone, no signal this deep in the basement, and headed for the door. She needed to get back upstairs, needed to tell Briggs they'd found another one of Cross's people. But when she opened the door, she stopped. Standing in the hallway, blocking her path, was Dr. Miles Greenfield. He wasn't alone. There were 2 men with him, both armed, both wearing tactical gear but no insignia. Private contractors, maybe. Or just hired muscle. Greenfield's face was pale, his jaw tight. He looked like a man who just realized he'd bet everything on the wrong hand. "Emily," he said quietly. "Step back inside." She didn't move. "You're with them." "I didn't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice." "Not when they threaten your family." Emily's stomach twisted. She'd seen this before. Good people doing terrible things because someone found the right pressure point. Greenfield had a wife, 2 kids. She'd seen the photos on his desk. "Cross?" she asked. Greenfield nodded. "He approached me 6 months ago, said if I didn't cooperate, my daughter would have an accident on her way home from school." "What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to go to the police." "And tell them what?" "That a man I'd never met was threatening me with no proof, no evidence, nothing but a phone call. They'd have laughed me out of the building." "So instead you helped him." "I gave him access, altered a few records. That's it. I didn't know he was going to—" Greenfield's voice cracked. "I didn't know about tonight. I didn't know they were going to bring someone here to kill him." "But you know now." "Yes. And you're still here, still working for him." "Because he still has my family." One of the contractors stepped forward. "Enough. We're on a schedule." Greenfield flinched but didn't argue. He looked at Emily, something like regret in his eyes. "I'm sorry, I really am. Sorry doesn't fix this." "I know." The contractor raised his weapon, a pistol with a suppressor attached. "Inside. Now." Emily didn't move. Her mind was working through options, calculating angles, distances. 2 armed men, 1 hostage doctor, and her with nothing but a keyboard and a zip-tied IT guy. Not good odds, but she'd worked with worse. "If you shoot me," she said calmly, "Briggs will hear it. He'll lock down this entire floor, and you'll never make it out." The contractor smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Suppressor, sweetheart. No one's going to hear anything." "You sure about that?" The lights went out. Not just in the hallway. In the entire basement, someone had cut the emergency power. Emily moved. She dove to the side, rolling into the darkness, using the sound of her own movement to mask her direction. Behind her, she heard the contractor swear, heard Greenfield shout something. A muzzle flash lit the hallway for a fraction of a second. The suppressed gunshot was a dull thump, like a book dropping on a desk. The bullet sparked off the concrete wall where Emily had been standing. She kept moving, low and fast, her hands brushing the wall to orient herself. She could hear the contractors moving, their boots scraping on the floor, their breathing harsh and controlled. Another flash. Another shot. This one closer. Emily's hand found a doorway, the maintenance office. She slipped inside, pressing herself against the wall, forcing her breathing to slow. Footsteps approached. One of the contractors, moving carefully, his weapon up. Emily waited until he was past the doorway, then stepped out behind him and kicked the back of his knee. He went down hard. She grabbed his weapon arm, twisted it, and slammed his wrist against the doorframe. The gun clattered to the floor. He tried to roll, tried to bring his other hand up, but Emily was faster. She drove her elbow into his throat, cutting off his air. He gagged, clawing at her arm, but she didn't let go. 5 seconds. 10. He went limp. Emily released him and grabbed his weapon. A Glock 19. Familiar weight. She checked the chamber, loaded, and moved back into the hallway. The second contractor was shouting now, calling for his partner. Emily could hear him moving toward her position, could hear Greenfield trying to calm him down. "She's just a nurse," Greenfield was saying. "She can't—" "Your nurse just took down Riker." "Then we need to—" The emergency lights came back on, flooding the hallway in red. Emily and the second contractor saw each other at the same time. He raised his weapon, so did she. For a fraction of a second they stood frozen, each waiting for the other to move. Then a voice echoed down the hallway, sharp and commanding. "Federal agents, drop your weapons!" The contractor's eyes flicked toward the sound. Emily didn't hesitate. She fired. The shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him around. His weapon fell. He collapsed against the wall, clutching the wound, blood seeping between his fingers. Emily kept the Glock trained on him as footsteps pounded down the hallway. Briggs appeared, flanked by 4 agents, their rifles up and ready. He took in the scene, Emily holding the gun, the contractor bleeding, Greenfield standing frozen in the middle of the hallway, and Riker unconscious on the floor. "Clear," Briggs said into his radio. Then to Emily, "You okay?" She nodded, though her hands were shaking now, adrenaline finally catching up. Briggs gestured to his team. "Secure them, all of them." 2 agents moved forward, cuffing the conscious contractor and checking Riker's pulse. Another took Greenfield by the arm, pulling him away from the wall. Greenfield didn't resist. He just stood there, his face slack, like someone had cut his strings. Briggs walked over to Emily and gently took the Glock from her hand. "You discharged a weapon in a federal operation." "He was going to shoot me." "I know. I'm just saying there's going to be paperwork." "Great." Briggs almost smiled. "Come on, let's get you upstairs." They made it as far as the stairwell before Emily's legs finally gave out. She sat down hard on the bottom step, her back against the wall, her chest heaving. Briggs sat down beside her. "Hell of a night." "Yeah." "Cross-trained you well." Emily's jaw tightened. "Cross-trained me to save lives, not to do whatever the hell he's doing now." "People change." "Not like that. Not unless they were always like that, and I just didn't see it." Briggs didn't argue. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then turned the screen toward her. "We found Webb's emails. He's been in contact with Cross for 8 months. Most of it's coded, but our analysts broke enough to confirm Cross has been planning this for a while. Voss, Greenfield, Webb, they're all part of a network designed to move high-value targets through civilian infrastructure without detection." And Hale stumbled into the middle of it. Not stumbled, he was sent. "We suspected Cross was dirty, but we needed proof. Hale volunteered to go undercover, get close, document everything. He did his job, got the evidence, and Cross tried to bury him for it." Emily looked at the phone screen, at the list of names and transactions. "How many others are there?" "We're still counting." "Jesus." Briggs pocketed the phone. "We're going to need your help, Emily. You know Cross. You know how he thinks. If we're going to take him down, we need someone on the inside who can anticipate his moves." "I'm not on the inside. I've been dead for 2 years." Exactly. Which means he won't see you coming." Emily closed her eyes. She'd spent 2 years rebuilding her life. Quiet. Anonymous. No firefights, no classified missions, no names crossed off in redacted reports. Just shift work and patient charts and the simple, manageable problems of people who needed stitches or painkillers or someone to hold their hand while they waited for test results. She'd liked that life. But it was gone now, burned away the moment Hale rolled through those doors. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. "For now, Help us find that hard drive. Hale woke up 10 minutes ago. He's asking for you. Emily's eyes snapped open. Why me? He said you're the only one he trusts. They found Hale in a secure room on the second floor, surrounded by monitors and guards. He was sitting up in bed, his face still pale, but his eyes sharp and alert. When Emily walked in, he tried to smile. It came out more like a grimace. You're the one who saved me, he said. Twice, Emily corrected. Then I owe you twice. She pulled up a chair and sat down. You don't owe me anything. Just tell me where the drive is. Hale's expression shifted, something guarded sliding into place. I don't know you. You asked for me. I asked for the nurse who carried me out of a firefight. That doesn't mean I trust you with classified intel. Emily leaned forward. Cross sent people to kill you tonight. 3 of them. They're all in custody now, but that doesn't mean he's done. If we don't find that drive before he does, everything you risked your life for disappears. So you can sit there and play spy games, or you can tell me where it is and let us finish this. Hale studied her for a long moment. Then he said, Cross mentioned you once, called you the best combat medic he'd ever trained, said you died in Kandahar. He lied. About you dying, or about you being the best? Both. I'm alive, and I was never the best, just the one who didn't quit. Hale's smile was genuine this time. Yeah, I can see that. He reached for the tablet on the bedside table, winced at the movement, and pulled up a map. The drive is in a locker at Union Station, Bay 247. Combination is 8592. Emily memorized the numbers. Why there? Because it's public. Cameras everywhere. Hard to make someone disappear in front of a few hundred commuters. Unless you own the people watching the cameras. Hale's face went pale. You think Cross... I think Cross has been 10 steps ahead of us this entire time, which means he already knows where the drive is, or he's about to. Briggs, who'd been standing by the door, stepped forward. We need to move. Now. Emily stood. I'm coming with you. Carter, you're not... I just took down 2 armed contractors and saved your only witness. I'm coming with you. Briggs looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just nodded and gestured toward the door. They took 2 SUVs, Briggs, Emily, and 4 agents in the first, backup team in the second. The drive to Union Station took 12 minutes, cutting through empty streets still slick with rain. Emily sat in the back, watching the city slide past, her mind running through scenarios. If Cross knew about the locker, he'd have people waiting. If he didn't, they had a narrow window to grab the drive and disappear before he figured it out. Either way, this was about to get messy. Union Station was quieter than usual for a Thursday night, just a handful of travelers scattered across the main concourse. Emily spotted the lockers along the east wall, rows of gray metal boxes with numeric keypads. Briggs sent 2 agents ahead to secure the perimeter. Emily followed him across the concourse, her eyes scanning faces, looking for anyone who didn't belong. She saw him before Briggs did, a man in a dark jacket, standing near the ticket kiosks, his posture too still, his eyes tracking their movement. She touched Briggs's arm, nodded toward the man. Briggs's hand moved to his weapon. The man saw the movement and ran. Go, Briggs shouted. 2 agents peeled off, chasing him toward the south exit. Emily and Briggs kept moving toward the lockers. Bay 247 was in the middle of the 3rd row. Emily punched in the combination. The door clicked open. Inside was a small external hard drive, matte black, no bigger than a deck of cards. Emily reached for it. And then the lights went out. Not just in the station, in the entire block. Emergency lighting kicked in, but it was dim, barely enough to see by. Briggs grabbed Emily's arm. We need to move. But before they could take a step, Emily heard it. A voice. Familiar. Cold. Hello, Emily? She turned. Standing 20 feet away, backlit by the emergency lights, was Major Daniel Cross. He wasn't alone. There were 6 men with him, all armed, all moving with the kind of precision that said military training. Cross smiled. I have to admit I'm impressed. I really thought you were dead. Emily's hand moved toward the Glock. Briggs had returned to her, but Cross raised a hand. I wouldn't. My men have orders to fire if you so much as twitch wrong. And I'd hate to lose you again so soon after getting you back. Briggs stepped forward. Cross, you're surrounded. Federal agents are converging on this location right now. You need to stand down. Cross laughed. Captain Briggs, still playing by the rules, I see. How's that working out for you? Better than it's working out for you. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, I have the high ground, superior numbers, and a very clear shot at the woman holding my property. Emily's grip tightened on the hard drive. This isn't yours. Everything in my operation is mine, including the people, including you, once upon a time. I was never yours. Weren't you? I trained you, shaped you, turned you from a scared kid with a first aid kit into a soldier who could stabilize a sucking chest wound while mortars were landing 20 feet away. You were my best work, Emily, and then you had to go and develop a conscience. You sold out your own people. I adapted. The world changed, the wars changed, and I realized the real enemy wasn't on the other side of a desert. It was the system that sent us there in the first place. So I started working for myself, making the connections that mattered, building something real. You built a betrayal network. I built an empire. Briggs's radio crackled. Cross's men tensed, weapons raising slightly. Tell them to stand down, Cross said, or this gets ugly fast. Emily's mind was racing. 6 hostiles, superior position, low light. Briggs and his agents were good, but in a close-quarters firefight, people were going to die. She made a decision. She held out the hard drive. You want this? Take it. Emily, don't, Briggs started. Take it, she repeated, and let everyone else walk away. Cross tilted his head, studying her. You think I'm going to just let you leave after everything you've seen tonight? I think you're going to take the drive and disappear. Because if you don't, Hale's testimony puts you away for the rest of your life. But if you have the drive, you have leverage. Proof that half the people trying to arrest you are on your payroll. That's worth more than killing me. Cross was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Smart. Always smart. That's what I liked about you. He gestured to one of his men. Take it. The man moved forward, weapon trained on Emily, and reached for the drive. Emily handed it over. The man stepped back, passing the drive to Cross. Cross examined it, then slipped it into his pocket. Pleasure doing business with you, Sergeant Carter. Try to stay dead this time. He turned and walked away, his men backing out after him, weapons still raised. Briggs started to move, but Emily grabbed his arm. Let them go. We can't just let them go. Briggs stared at her, frustration and confusion warring on his face. But he didn't move. Cross and his team disappeared into the darkness outside the station. The lights came back on 30 seconds later. Briggs rounded on Emily. What the hell was that? Emily pulled her phone from her pocket and held it up. On the screen was a notification. File upload complete. Briggs's eyes widened. You copied it? While I was opening the locker, took about 8 seconds. And the drive you gave him? Blank. Well, mostly blank. I put a few corrupted files on there to make it look real. It'll take his people a few hours to figure out they've been played. Briggs stared at her, then started laughing. You just conned a career intelligence officer. I learned from the best. Briggs took the phone, forwarding the file to his secure server. This is everything? Everything Hale died for. Financial records, communications, names, all of it. Then we have him. Emily nodded. Yeah, we have him. But even as she said it, she felt the weight settling over her. Cross wasn't going to just disappear. He was going to realize he'd been played, and when he did, he was going to come back. And next time, he wouldn't be interested in deals. Briggs's phone buzzed. He answered it, listened for a moment, and his face went pale. What? Emily asked. He lowered the phone slowly. Hale's gone. What do you mean, gone? I mean, he's not in his room. The guards are unconscious. Someone took him. Emily's stomach dropped. Because she'd just realized something. Cross had left too easily. Had walked away from a confrontation he could have won. Had taken the fake drive without checking it. Because he didn't need to fight. He already had what he wanted. He had Hale. Emily was already running before Briggs finished the sentence. She didn't wait for orders, didn't wait for backup. She just moved, her boots pounding across the station concourse, her mind calculating timelines and possibilities. The guards had been unconscious, which meant sedatives or blunt force trauma. Either way, it took time. Cross's team hadn't grabbed Hale during the confrontation. They'd already had him. The whole exchange at the locker had been theater, a distraction to keep Briggs and his agents focused on the wrong target while someone else walked Hale out the back door of Northbridge Medical. Briggs caught up to her at the SUV, his face tight with controlled fury. "We need a plan. The plan is we find him before Cross realizes the drive is fake. That gives us maybe 2 hours, 3 if we're lucky. Then we don't waste time planning." Emily yanked open the passenger door and climbed in. Briggs hesitated for half a second, then got behind the wheel. The backup team was already mobilizing, agents pouring into vehicles, radios crackling with coordinates and call signs. Briggs pulled out of the station lot, tires screeching. Where would Cross take him? Emily's mind was racing through everything she knew about her former commander. Cross was methodical, cautious. He didn't improvise well, but he planned 3 moves ahead. He'd need somewhere secure, somewhere he controlled, somewhere with multiple exits in case things went wrong. "He had safe houses," she said, "back when I was under his command, places off the books. But that was 2 years ago. He's probably moved on." "Give me locations anyway. It's a starting point." Emily rattled off 3 addresses: a warehouse near the industrial district, a residential property in the suburbs under a shell company name, an abandoned veterinary clinic that had been used for interrogations. Briggs relayed them to his team, dispatching units to each location. But Emily knew they wouldn't find anything. Cross was smarter than that. He wouldn't use old infrastructure for something this critical. He'd have moved his operation, established new protocols, new locations. Hale was sitting in a room she'd never seen, guarded by men she'd never met, and they had no leads. "We need leverage," Emily said. "What kind of leverage?" "The kind that makes Cross come to us instead of the other way around." Briggs glanced at her. "What are you thinking?" Greenfield said Cross threatened his family. If Cross is willing to use families as pressure points, he's got a pattern. We find everyone else he's leveraging. We cut his strings. That could be dozens of people. We don't have time to... We don't need dozens. We just need one. Someone close enough to him that losing them hurts. Briggs's jaw tightened. "You want to use a hostage to draw him out. I want to use his own tactics against him." "That's not how we operate." "It's how he operates. And right now, he's winning." Briggs didn't respond immediately. He drove in silence for 3 blocks, the city lights streaking past, the radio crackling with negative reports from the team searching the safe houses. Finally, he said, "There's one person, his daughter." Emily turned to look at him. "Cross has a daughter?" "Rebecca Cross, 23, graduate student at State. She doesn't know what her father does, at least that's what our psych profile suggests. But Cross visits her every 2 weeks like clockwork, never misses. We've had her under surveillance for the last month, waiting to see if she led us anywhere." "Has she?" "No, she goes to class, goes to the library, goes home, completely clean." Emily processed that. A daughter Cross cared enough about to maintain regular contact, to protect from his own operations. That was leverage. Not the kind Emily wanted to use. Dragging an innocent civilian into this mess felt wrong on every level, but it was the only card they had left. "Where is she now?" Emily asked. "Her apartment, near campus." "Take me there." Briggs made a sharp turn, heading north. "We're not grabbing her. We're not using her as bait." "We don't have to grab her. We just need Cross to think we might." "And how do we do that without actually threatening her?" Emily pulled out her phone, opened a messaging app, and typed out a simple message. "I know where Rebecca is. Want to talk?" She showed it to Briggs. "We send this from a burner number. Let him sweat. He'll either ignore it, which means she's not as important as we think, or he'll respond. And if he responds, we have a dialogue. Dialogue means negotiation." Briggs's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "This is a bad idea. You have a better one?" He didn't. They stopped 2 blocks from Rebecca's apartment building, a modest 3-story walk-up in a neighborhood that was trying hard to be trendy and not quite making it. Briggs sent the message from an encrypted phone, then they waited. 2 minutes passed. 3. Emily's pulse was hammering, her knee bouncing with nervous energy. She forced herself to stay still, to breathe evenly, but her mind was already 10 steps ahead, running through scenarios, contingencies, the dozen ways this could go wrong. The phone buzzed. Briggs opened the message. 3 words. "Leave her alone." Emily leaned over to read it. "You took the bait." Briggs typed back, "Hail for Rebecca. Clean trade." "You picked the location." Another long pause. Emily could almost see Cross on the other end, weighing options, calculating risks. He knew they wouldn't actually hurt his daughter. He had to know that. But the threat was enough to force a response. The phone buzzed again. "You're bluffing." Briggs looked at Emily. "He's calling us." Then we raise. She took the phone and typed, "Rebecca drives a blue Honda Civic. License plate 7 Delta Kilo 942. She parked in spot 12 outside her building 20 minutes ago. She's wearing a gray sweater and jeans. She just ordered Thai food from the place on campus. Delivery in 15 minutes. Still think I'm bluffing?" Emily had no idea if any of that was true, but Briggs's surveillance team would have logged those details, and if cross-checked, which he would, it would all match. The next message came faster. "You touch her, and Hale dies screaming." "He's rattled," Briggs said. Emily typed, "I don't want to touch her. I want Hale back. You want the real drive. Let's make a deal." This time, the pause stretched longer. Emily counted the seconds, watching the screen, willing it to light up. Finally, Pier 19. Industrial dock. 1 hour. You bring the drive, I bring Hale. No backup, no tricks, just you. Briggs shook his head. "Absolutely not. That's a kill box. He'll have shooters on every angle." "Probably. So we're not doing it. We don't have a choice." "Carter, this is insane. He's going to kill you the second you step onto that dock." "Maybe. Or maybe he still thinks I'm useful. Either way, it's the only play we have." Briggs grabbed her arm. "I'm not sending you in there alone." "You're not sending me. I'm going." "Then I'm coming with you." "No." He said no backup. If he sees federal vehicles, he'll disappear and we'll never find Hale. "So what's your plan? Walk in there and hope Cross has a sudden attack of conscience?" Emily pulled her arm free. "My plan is to walk in there with the real drive, make the trade, and walk out with Hale. And if Cross tries anything, I put him down." "With what? You're not armed." Emily reached into her jacket and pulled out the Glock she'd taken from the contractor in the hospital basement. She'd slipped it into her waistband when no one was looking, a habit from years of operations where the official loadout didn't always match the mission requirements. Briggs stared at the weapon. "You stole that from an evidence scene. Borrowed." "Carter..." "Briggs, we're out of time. Hale is sitting in a room somewhere with people who will kill him the second Cross gives the order. Maybe they're torturing him right now, trying to confirm what's on the drive. Maybe they're just waiting. Either way, every minute we argue is another minute Hale doesn't have. So I'm going to Pier 19. You can either help me or get out of my way." Briggs looked like he wanted to argue, wanted to pull rank, wanted to do anything except let her walk into what was almost certainly a trap. But he didn't. He just exhaled slowly and said, "Fine, but you're wearing a wire. Cross will check for that. Then you're wearing a tracker, something small enough that he won't find it in a pat-down." Emily nodded. "Okay." Briggs made a call, and 10 minutes later, one of his agents showed up with a tiny GPS chip, no bigger than a pill. Emily swallowed it dry. The agent assured her it would pass through her system in 24 hours and transmit her location the entire time. "If things go bad," Briggs said, "if we lose your signal or if you don't check in within 2 hours, we're coming in. If you lose my signal, I'm already dead. Coming in just gets more people killed. I'm coming in anyway." Emily almost smiled. "Yeah, I know." She checked the Glock, full magazine, one in the chamber, and tucked it back into her waistband. The drive was still on Briggs's phone. She had him transfer it to a clean USB stick, which she slipped into her pocket. 42 minutes until the meet. Briggs drove her to within 2 blocks of Pier 19, then stopped. "You sure about this?" "No." "But you're doing it anyway." "Yeah." He handed her a radio earpiece, tiny and flesh-colored. "At least take this. I won't transmit unless you're in immediate danger, but I want to hear what's happening." Emily hesitated, then nodded and fitted the earpiece in place. It was small enough that Cross might miss it, and if he didn't, she could always say it was a hearing aid. She opened the door and stepped out into the rain. It had started again, a light drizzle that made the streetlights hazy and indistinct. "Emily." She turned back. Briggs was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You were a damn good soldier. Still are." "I'm a nurse." "You're both." Emily didn't have a response to that, so she just nodded and walked away. Pier 19 was a decaying relic from the city's industrial past, a stretch of cracked concrete, and rusted cranes that jutted out into the harbor like a broken tooth. Most of the warehouses had been abandoned years ago, their windows shattered, their walls covered in graffiti. The place smelled like diesel fuel and rotting fish. Emily approached from the south, moving slowly, her eyes scanning for movement. The rain was coming down harder now, drumming on the metal roofs, turning the ground slick and treacherous. She saw the vehicles first, 3 black SUVs parked in a loose semicircle near the water's edge. Floodlights had been set up, cutting harsh white beams through the rain. In the center of the light stood Cross. He was alone. No visible weapons, hands at his sides. Emily knew it was a lie. There were shooters somewhere in the shadows, at least 4, maybe more. She could feel their scopes tracking her as she walked forward. She stopped 20 feet from Cross, just outside the pool of light. "That's far enough," he said. Emily held up the USB stick. "I brought the drive." "And I brought Hale." Cross gestured, and 2 men emerged from one of the SUVs, half carrying, half dragging a figure between them. Hale. He was conscious, but barely, his face swollen and bruised, his shirt soaked with blood. They dumped him on the ground at Cross's feet. Emily's jaw clenched. "You said he'd be unharmed." "I said I'd bring him. I never said what condition he'd be in. He needs medical attention." "Then we'd better make this quick." Emily took a step forward. Immediately red laser dots appeared on her chest. 3 of them, perfectly spaced. She froze. Cross smiled. "Just a precaution. You understand. Let him go first." "You're not in a position to negotiate. Neither are you. That drive contains enough evidence to put you away for life. You want it, you let Hale walk." "Walk where? He can barely stand. Then crawl. I don't care. But he leaves before I hand this over." Cross studied her, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded to one of his men. "Help him up." The man grabbed Hale under the arms and hauled him to his feet. Hale swayed, his eyes unfocused, but he managed to stay upright. "Go," Cross said. Hale took a step, then another. His legs buckled, but he caught himself, kept moving. Emily watched him approach, her heart hammering, every nerve screaming that this was wrong, that Cross wouldn't just let him go, that the second Hale was clear, the shooters would open fire. But Hale kept walking. He made it to Emily, collapsed against her. She caught him, felt the dead weight of him, felt the sticky warmth of blood soaking through his shirt. "Can you stand?" she whispered. "Maybe. For about 10 seconds. That's all we need." She looked back at Cross. "He's clear. Here's the drive." She tossed it underhand, a gentle arc through the rain. Cross caught it, examined it, then slipped it into his pocket. "Pleasure doing business with you, Sergeant." "We're done here." "Not quite." Emily's stomach dropped. Cross pulled a phone from his pocket and held it up. On the screen was a video feed. Rebecca's apartment. The camera angle showed her sitting on a couch, reading a book, completely unaware she was being watched. "Insurance," Cross said. "In case you got any ideas about coming after me. I don't care about your daughter." "Maybe not, but Briggs does. He's got a whole file on her. Surveillance logs, psych profiles, contingency plans, and now I know he's been watching her, which means if anything happens to me, my people have very clear instructions about what to do with Rebecca." Emily's blood ran cold. She'd given Cross exactly what he needed. Confirmation that his daughter was a target. Confirmation that she mattered. And now he'd use that as a shield. "You're a coward," she said. "I'm a survivor. There's a difference." Cross turned and walked back toward the SUVs. His men followed, moving with disciplined precision, covering his retreat. Emily stood there, holding Hale, watching them go. The red dots were still on her chest. "Emily," Hale whispered. "The drive. What about it?" "It wasn't complete. I held back some files, uploaded them to a private server. Insurance." Emily's pulse quickened. "What files?" "The ones that prove Cross has assets inside the Bureau. Names, badge numbers, everything." "Why didn't you tell Briggs?" "Because I didn't know who to trust, but now—" Hale coughed, blood flecking his lips. "Now I know. It's you. Hale, I need you to—" The gunshot cracked through the rain. Emily felt the impact before she heard the sound. A sledgehammer blow to her left shoulder that spun her around and dropped her to her knees. The Glock clattered from her waistband, skittering across the wet concrete. Hale collapsed beside her, a second wound blooming red across his chest. Emily's vision blurred. Pain radiated down her arm, hot and sharp. She pressed her hand to the wound, felt blood pulsing between her fingers. Cross had stopped at the SUV, phone still in his hand. I lied about the insurance. Rebecca's fine, but I couldn't risk you following. Emily tried to speak, but her throat was tight, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Cross climbed into the SUV. The vehicles pulled away, their taillights disappearing into the rain. The red dots vanished from Emily's chest. She was alone on the pier, bleeding, with Hale dying beside her. Her hand fumbled for the earpiece. Briggs. Static. Briggs, I need... Her vision went dark at the edges. She could hear footsteps, voices, but they sounded distant, muffled. Someone was shouting her name. She tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come. The last thing she saw before everything went black was Hale's face, his eyes locked on hers, his lips moving in words she couldn't hear. And then nothing. Emily woke up to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of a heart monitor. Her left shoulder was wrapped in bandages, immobilized in a sling. An IV drip fed into her right arm. The ceiling above her was white, featureless. She turned her head, slowly because moving hurt, and saw Briggs sitting in a chair beside the bed. He looked exhausted, his face unshaven, his eyes bloodshot. "You're awake," he said. Emily's throat was dry. "How long?" 18 hours. You lost a lot of blood. The bullet went clean through, missed the bone. You're lucky." "Doesn't feel lucky." "Compared to Hale, you are." Emily's chest tightened. "Is he alive?" "Barely. He's in surgery now. They're not sure if he'll make it." Emily closed her eyes. She'd failed. She'd walked into Cross's trap, handed over the only leverage they had, and gotten herself and Hale shot for her trouble. Cross was gone, the real drive was in his hands, and they were back to square one. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For screwing this up." Briggs leaned forward. "Emily, you didn't screw anything up. You saved Hale's life. Again. If you hadn't made that trade, Cross would have killed him outright. He might still die. But he's got a chance. That's more than he had 6 hours ago." Emily opened her eyes. "Cross has the drive. He knows about Rebecca. He's got assets inside the bureau. We have nothing. We have something." Briggs pulled out a tablet and turned it toward her. On the screen was a video, grainy, shot from a distance, but clear enough. It showed Cross at the pier, making the trade, shooting Emily and Hale, and then, just before he climbed into the SUV, pulling out the USB drive and handing it to one of his men. The man held it up to the light, examining it, then nodded. And in that moment, the floodlights caught his face. Emily recognized him instantly. Jason Webb, Aaron's older brother. Former military intelligence, dishonorably discharged 3 years ago for selling classified information. "We traced him," Briggs said. "He's got a place outside the city, isolated, off the grid. If Cross is regrouping anywhere, it's there." Emily pushed herself upright, ignoring the pain screaming through her shoulder. "Then we need to move." "You're not moving anywhere. You just got shot." "I'll heal. Hale might not. And if Cross figures out the files Hale held back, what files?" Emily told him what Hale had said, about the private server, the evidence of Cross's bureau assets, the insurance Hale had kept hidden. Briggs's face went pale. "If Cross finds out, he'll kill everyone who knows, starting with Hale." "Where's the server?" "I don't know. Hale didn't say." Briggs stood pacing. "We need to find it before Cross does. We need to find Cross before he disappears for good." Briggs stopped, looked at her. "You can barely sit up. You can't go after him." "Watch me." "Emily, Briggs, I've spent 2 years hiding, 2 years pretending to be someone I'm not. And tonight, Cross shot me and walked away. Again. I'm done hiding. I'm done running. He wants a fight? I'll give him one." Briggs opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He studied her face, and whatever he saw there made him nod slowly. "Okay, but you're not going alone." "I work better alone." "I don't care. You're getting backup whether you like it or not." Emily swung her legs off the bed, testing her balance. Her shoulder throbbed, but she could move. That was enough. A nurse appeared in the doorway, alarmed. "Ma'am, you need to stay in bed." "I'm discharging myself." "You can't. Watch me." The nurse looked at Briggs, who just shrugged. "She's stubborn. You'll lose this fight." 30 minutes later, Emily was in the back of an SUV, dressed in borrowed tactical gear that didn't quite fit. Her shoulder was rebandaged, the sling discarded. She'd taken 4 ibuprofen and injected herself with a local anesthetic that would hold for maybe 2 hours before the pain came roaring back. Briggs was in the passenger seat. 4 agents filled the other vehicles. They were heading to Jason Webb's property, a farmhouse 40 miles outside the city, surrounded by open fields and woods. "We go in quiet," Briggs said. "Reconnaissance first. If Cross is there, we call for backup and wait." Emily didn't respond. She was checking her weapon, a new Glock, fully loaded, 2 spare magazines. Her hands were steady despite the pain, despite the exhaustion. They arrived just before dawn, parking a mile out and approaching on foot through the woods. The farmhouse was dark, no lights visible, no vehicles in the driveway. "Could be empty," one of the agents whispered. "Or they're asleep," Briggs said. "We check it out, slow and careful." They moved in, splitting into 2 teams. Emily went with Briggs and 2 agents circling around to the back entrance. The other team covered the front. The back door was unlocked. Briggs raised a fist, hold position. He tried the handle, eased the door open. No alarm, no sound. They slipped inside. The house was cold, the air stale. Emily's eyes adjusted to the darkness, picking out shapes, furniture, doorways, a hallway leading deeper into the structure. They cleared the first floor room by room. Empty. No sign of recent occupancy. Upstairs, they found 3 bedrooms. 2 were empty. The third had someone in it. Rebecca Cross was tied to a chair, gagged, her eyes wide with terror. Emily's breath caught. "Briggs!" He saw her, swore softly. They moved in fast, clearing the room, checking closets and corners. Empty. Emily knelt beside Rebecca, removed the gag. "Are you hurt?" Rebecca shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "They took him. They took my father." "Who took him?" "I don't know. Men in masks. They came to my apartment, grabbed me, brought me here. My father showed up an hour ago. He tried to negotiate. They shot him." Emily's stomach twisted. "Is he alive?" "I think so. They dragged him into a van, said something about making an example." Briggs was already on the radio, calling in the location, requesting immediate backup and medical. Emily untied Rebecca's hands. "Did they say where they were taking him?" "No. But I heard one of them on the phone. He said something about the warehouse on 5th. I don't know what that means." Emily did. The warehouse on 5th was one of Cross's old safe houses. The one she'd given Briggs hours ago. The one his team had already cleared and found empty. Which meant either Cross's people had cleaned it out before the team arrived, or... Emily's blood ran cold. "It's a trap," she said. Briggs looked at her. "What?" "The team you sent to the warehouse. They're walking into an ambush. Cross's people are using him as bait." Briggs grabbed his radio. "All units, abort approach to 5th Street location. I repeat, abort." The radio exploded with static, then screaming. Gunfire crackled in the background. A voice, panicked. "We're taking fire. Multiple hostiles. Officer down. We need..." The transmission cut off. Briggs went pale. "No." Emily was already moving, running for the stairs. Briggs shouted after her, but she didn't stop. She hit the ground floor at a sprint, burst out the back door, and ran for the vehicles. She knew what she had to do. Cross was bait. His own people had turned on him, set him up, used him to lure in federal agents. But why? What did they gain? And then she understood. The files Hale had held back. The evidence of Cross's bureau assets. Someone inside wanted those files buried, and they were willing to burn Cross to do it. Emily reached the SUV, yanked open the door, and found Briggs's tablet still sitting on the seat. She unlocked it, pulled up the surveillance logs from Hale's operation. There. A name she recognized. Special Agent Marcus Reeves, Briggs's direct superior. He was on Cross's payroll, and he just sent a team of agents into a kill zone. Emily's hand shook as she pulled up Briggs's contact list, found Reeves's number. She called it. He answered on the second ring. "Briggs?" "No," Emily said. "It's me." A pause. "Sergeant Carter, I heard you were dead." "I get that a lot. We need to talk." "About what?" About the fact that you just sent 6 agents to die so you could cover up your connection to Cross. Another pause, longer this time. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, and I can prove it. Hale had files, insurance files, names, transactions, everything, and he gave me the access codes before he went into surgery. Emily was lying. She had no access codes, no files, nothing, but Reeves didn't know that. You're bluffing, he said. Am I? Then why are you still on the phone? She could hear him breathing, could almost feel the wheels turning in his head. What do you want? He finally asked. I want you to call off your people, pull them back from 5th Street, let Briggs's team extract Cross, and get out. And if I do, then maybe I don't release the files. You're in no position to negotiate. Neither are you, because in about 90 seconds, I'm uploading everything Hale gave me to every major news outlet in the country. Your name, your badge number, your bank accounts, all of it, unless you call off your people right now. Silence. Then, you're making a mistake, Carter. Probably, but it won't be my first. She hung up. 60 seconds later, Briggs came running out of the farmhouse, his face pale. The shooting stopped. My team is reporting hostiles in retreat. They're extracting now. Emily exhaled slowly. Good. What did you do? Made a deal with the devil. What kind of deal? The kind that buys us time, maybe an hour, maybe less. Briggs stared at her. Emily, what did you... His phone rang. He answered it, listened, and his face went white. He lowered the phone slowly. Reeves just turned himself in. Walked into headquarters, confessed to everything. Conspiracy, obstruction, accessory to murder. He's giving up names, locations, the whole network. Emily's knees went weak. Why? I don't know. But he asked to speak to you. They brought Emily into an interrogation room at federal headquarters 2 hours later. Reeves was sitting at a metal table, his hands cuffed, his face drawn. He looked older than his file photo, harder. He looked up when Emily walked in. You lied about the files. Yeah. But you made me believe it. That takes skill. Emily sat down across from him. Why did you turn yourself in? Reeves leaned back in his chair. Because you were right. I was in no position to negotiate. Cross's network is falling apart. His people are turning on him, on each other. It's only a matter of time before someone talks, and I'd rather it be me on my terms, with a deal on the table, than get dragged in later when I have no leverage left. So this is self-preservation. This is reality. I did things I'm not proud of, took money, looked the other way, but I never killed anyone. And I'm not going to prison for the rest of my life because Cross decided to play cowboy. Emily studied him. Where is he? Your team has him. They extracted him from 5th Street 20 minutes ago. He's in bad shape, took 2 bullets, but he'll live long enough to stand trial. And the files Hale was holding back? Reeves smiled faintly. Those are real. Hale uploaded them to a server before he went dark. I don't know where. But if you find them, they'll bury what's left of Cross's operation, and mine. Emily stood. You're going to prison. I know. Was it worth it? Reeves didn't answer. Emily left the room, her shoulders screaming, her head pounding. Briggs was waiting outside. Hale's out of surgery, he said. He's stable, awake, asking for you. They found Hale in a recovery room, hooked up to more machines than Emily could count. His face was pale, his breathing shallow, but his eyes were clear. You made it, he said. So did you. Barely. He coughed, wincing. The files, did you find them? Not yet. I can tell you where they are, but you have to promise me something. What? When this is over, when Cross is done, you make sure Rebecca knows her father wasn't a monster. He was just lost. Emily's throat tightened. Hale, he tried to kill you. I know, but she doesn't need to carry that. She just needs to move on. Emily nodded. Okay. Hale told her the access codes, the server location, everything. Emily memorized it all. 2 hours later, Briggs' tech team had the files. Every name, every transaction, every piece of evidence Cross had accumulated. It was enough to dismantle his entire network, to arrest dozens of people, to close cases that had been cold for years. Emily stood outside the hospital watching the sunrise break over the city. Her shoulder hurt. Her body hurt. But for the first time in 2 years, she felt like she could breathe. Briggs walked up beside her. It's over. Is it? Cross is in custody. Reeves confessed. The network is falling apart. Yeah, it's over. Emily wasn't sure she believed that, but she nodded anyway. What are you going to do now? Briggs asked. I don't know. Go back to work, I guess. You can't go back to Northbridge. Not after this. I know. But there are other hospitals, other places that could use someone with your skills. Emily almost smiled. You offering me a job? I'm saying you have options. You don't have to hide anymore. Emily looked at him. What if I want to? Then I can't stop you, but I think you're done hiding. Maybe he was right. Maybe she was. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Thank you for keeping your promise. R.C. Rebecca. Emily deleted the message and pocketed the phone. Briggs's radio crackled. Captain, we have a situation. Cross is asking to speak to Carter. Says he has information she needs to hear. Briggs looked at Emily. You don't have to go. Yeah, Emily said, I do. They brought her to a secure room where Cross was handcuffed to a table, flanked by 2 guards. He looked terrible, bruised, bloodied, his left arm in a sling, but his eyes were still sharp. Sergeant Carter, he said. Or should I call you Emily now? Call me whatever you want. I'm not staying long. Then I'll make this quick. You won, Emily. You got the files, you got the arrests, you got your justice. Congratulations. Is that what you wanted to tell me? No. Cross leaned forward as much as the cuffs would allow. I wanted to tell you that you're not safe. Emily's stomach tightened. What are you talking about? My network wasn't just domestic. I had international contacts, people who paid very well for certain kinds of information. And one of them, let's call him Mr. Volkov, is very unhappy that his investment just went up in flames. So? So he knows your name, he knows your face, and he knows you're the one who brought me down. Emily's pulse quickened. You're lying. Am I? Check your phone, right pocket. Emily pulled out her phone. There was a new message. A photo. It showed her walking into the hospital, taken from across the street. Timestamped 20 minutes ago. Below the photo, we'll be in touch. Emily's hands went cold. Cross smiled. Like I said, you're not safe. Emily stared at the photo until the screen went dark. When she looked up, Cross was watching her with something that might have been satisfaction or might have been pity. She couldn't tell which, and she didn't care. How long have they been watching? She asked. Since you walked out of Union Station, Volkov doesn't take risks. He puts eyes on anyone who threatens his investments. And you're just telling me this now? I'm telling you because it doesn't matter anymore. I'm locked up. My network is burned. But Volkov? He's still out there. And he's patient. He'll wait 6 months, a year, however long it takes for you to think you're safe. Then he'll make his move. Emily's hand tightened on the phone. What does he want? What everyone wants. Leverage. You've got access to files that could expose his operations across 3 continents. He needs those files destroyed, and he needs you to do it. I'm not destroying evidence? Then you're a dead woman. Briggs stepped forward. That's enough, Cross. Guards, get him out of here. The guards moved in, hauling Cross to his feet. He didn't resist, but he kept his eyes on Emily the entire time. You were the best I ever trained, he said. Don't waste it by being stubborn. They dragged him out. The door slammed shut. Briggs turned to Emily. He's playing you, trying to get in your head. Maybe. Or maybe he's telling the truth. Even if he is, we can protect you. Witness security, relocation, new identity. I've already done that once. I'm not doing it again. Emily. Briggs, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I didn't come this far just to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. So what's your plan? Go after Volkov yourself? Emily didn't answer. She was already thinking through the logistics, the impossibilities. Volkov wasn't some low-level contractor you could track down with a phone number and a warrant. He was a ghost, operating through layers of cutouts and shell companies, untouchable by conventional law enforcement. But ghosts left traces, and Emily had spent 2 years learning how to be invisible. She knew the patterns, the vulnerabilities. If Volkov was watching her, that meant he had people on the ground, people who could be followed, people who could make mistakes. I need access to the surveillance footage, she said. Every camera within 3 blocks of the hospital. Last 2 hours. Briggs studied her face. You're going to find whoever took that photo. And when I do, they're going to lead me to Volkov. That's a long shot. It's the only shot I have. Briggs made a call. 20 minutes later, Emily was sitting in a tech room at federal headquarters, surrounded by monitors showing street-level footage from a dozen different angles. The analyst working the system was a young woman named Torres, who looked like she hadn't slept in 3 days. What am I looking for? Torres asked. Someone watching the hospital entrance, probably in a vehicle, probably alone. Torres pulled up the footage, scrubbing through timestamps. Emily watched the screens, her eyes scanning for anything out of place. A car parked too long. A pedestrian who circled the block twice. Anything. There. Stop, Emily said. Go back 30 seconds. Torres rewound. Emily leaned closer. A gray sedan parked across the street from the hospital entrance. Driver visible through the windshield, male, mid-40s, dark hair. He was holding something. A phone angled toward the entrance. That's him, Emily said. Can you get a plate? Torres zoomed in, enhanced the image. The plate was partially obscured by a delivery truck, but she managed to pull 3 characters, 4B something. Run it, Emily said. Torres typed rapidly. Partial match gives me 47 possibilities in the metro area. Most are registered to commercial fleets or rental companies. Focus on the rentals. Torres narrowed the search. 3 matches. 2 are currently rented out. 1 was returned yesterday. Who rented it? Company called Meridian Logistics. Address is a P.O. box. Emily's pulse quickened. Shell company. Looks like it. No business license, no tax records, no employees. What about the other 2? One's rented to a corporate account. The other is individual. Michael Santos, resident of Arlington. Emily committed the name to memory. Pull everything you have on Santos. Torres brought up a file. Clean record, no priors, worked as an independent security consultant. But his employment history had gaps, long ones, the kind that suggested off-the-books contracts. That's our guy, Emily said. Current address? Torres hesitated. I can't just give you that information. Emily looked at Briggs, who was standing behind her. He sighed. Give it to her. Torres read off an address in a neighborhood Emily didn't recognize. She memorized it, then stood. Where are you going? Briggs asked. To have a conversation. Not alone. I work better alone. Carter, this guy is a professional. If he's working for Volkov, he's dangerous. So am I. Briggs grabbed her arm. At least take backup. Silent approach, eyes only. But you're not walking into a potential hostile alone. Emily wanted to argue, but the pain in her shoulder was a reminder that she wasn't operating at full capacity. And Briggs was right. Going in blind against a trained operator was stupid. She'd been stupid enough for 1 week. Fine, she said, but they stay outside unless I signal. Briggs nodded and made the arrangements. 40 minutes later, Emily was sitting in an unmarked van 2 blocks from Santos's address, a modest townhouse in a quiet residential area. 2 agents were in the van with her, monitoring radio chatter. Another team was positioned on the next street over, ready to move in if things went bad. Emily checked her weapon, the Glock she'd carried at the pier, freshly reloaded. Her shoulder throbbed, the local anesthetic wearing off, but she ignored it. Pain was just information. It told her she was alive. We're in position, one of the agents said. Emily opened the van door. Remember, I go in first. You hear gunshots, you move. Otherwise, you wait. She crossed the street, moving casually, like she belonged there. The townhouse had a small front yard, neatly maintained. Lights were on inside, visible through the drawn curtains. Emily knocked. Footsteps approached. The door opened a crack, still chained. Santos's face appeared in the gap. He looked exactly like his photo, dark hair, hard eyes, the kind of face that didn't give anything away. Help you? He asked. Michael Santos? Who's asking? Emily held up her phone, showing him the photo he'd taken of her. The person you've been watching. Santos's expression didn't change, but she saw his weight shift slightly, his right hand moving out of view, going for a weapon. Emily moved faster. She kicked the door hard, snapping the chain, and drove her shoulder into the wood. The door flew open, catching Santos in the face. He staggered back, blood streaming from his nose. Emily was inside before he could recover. She swept his legs, dropped him to the floor, and pressed the Glock against the back of his head. Hands behind your back. Now. Santos complied, moving slowly. Emily zip-tied his wrists, then patted him down. She found a pistol in a shoulder holster, a knife in his boot, and a phone in his pocket. She took everything, then hauled him upright and shoved him into a chair. "Who's Volkov?" she asked. Santos spat blood onto the floor. "I don't know what you're talking about." Emily showed him the photo again. "You took this 2 hours ago. You've been surveilling me on someone's orders. I want to know whose." "I'm a private investigator. I was hired to document your movements. That's it." "By who?" "Client confidentiality." Emily leaned in close. "Your client is a foreign operative running a criminal network. That makes you an accessory. You're looking at 20 years minimum, unless you cooperate." Santos smiled, blood on his teeth. "You're not a cop. You can't offer me anything." "You're right. I'm not a cop, which means I don't have to follow their rules." She pressed the muzzle of the Glock against his kneecap. "Last chance. Who hired you?" Santos's smile faded. "You won't shoot me." "You sure about that?" She pulled the trigger. The gunshot was deafening in the small room. Santos screamed, clutching his leg. Blood spread across the carpet. Emily hadn't actually shot him. She'd fired into the floor 6 inches to the left of his knee, but the sound and the shock were enough. "Next one goes through bone," she said calmly. "Now talk." Santos was gasping, his face white. Okay. I was hired through a broker. No direct contact, just orders and payment." "What were the orders?" "Watch you. Document your movements. Report back every 6 hours." "Report to who?" "I don't know. It's all encrypted. I send photos to a server. I get paid in cryptocurrency. I never see faces, never hear voices." Emily grabbed his phone, unlocked it with his thumbprint while he was too shocked to resist, and scrolled through his messages. Everything was coded, routed through anonymizing software. But there was one recent message that stood out. "Target is active. Proceed to Phase 2. "What's Phase 2? Emily asked. "I don't know." She raised the gun again. "I swear, they don't tell me the full plan. I just follow orders." Emily believed him. He was a low-level asset, disposable. Volkov wouldn't trust him with operational details. She heard footsteps outside. The agents responding to the gunshot. She'd run out of time. "When's your next check-in?" she asked. 20 minutes. "What were you supposed to report?" "That you're at federal headquarters, that you're cooperating with the investigation." Emily thought fast. If Volkov believed she was still cooperating with Briggs, he might hold off on Phase 2, whatever that was. But if he suspected she was onto him, he'd accelerate. She needed to control the narrative. "Here's what you're going to do," she said. "You're going to send your check-in exactly as planned. You're going to tell them I'm still at headquarters, that I'm working with federal agents, that I seem cooperative, and you're going to keep doing that until I tell you to stop. And if I don't, then I come back and finish what I started." Santos nodded, his face slick with sweat. The front door burst open. 2 agents rushed in, weapons raised. They saw Santos bleeding on the floor and Emily standing over him with a gun. "Stand down!" one of them shouted. Emily lowered the weapon. "He fell!" The agent looked at the bullet hole in the floor. "That's a hell of a fall." "He's clumsy." Briggs appeared in the doorway, took in the scene, and sighed. "Carter, we need to talk." They stood outside while paramedics worked on Santos. Briggs's face was tight with barely controlled anger. "You shot him," he said. "Near him. That's not better." "He's alive. He's talking." "That's better than the alternative." Briggs ran a hand through his hair. "You can't just go around shooting people, Emily. I don't care what Cross taught you. There are rules." "Rules didn't stop Volkov from putting a target on my back." "No, but they're what separate us from people like him." Emily met his eyes. "Maybe I don't want to be separated. Maybe I want to be exactly like him, just long enough to finish this. That's how you lose yourself. I lost myself 2 years ago. I'm just trying to survive." Briggs was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What did Santos tell you?" Emily told him about the check-ins, the encrypted communications, Phase 2. Briggs's expression darkened. "We need to bring him in. Full interrogation, intelligence sweep, trace every communication." No, Emily said. If you bring him in, Volkov will know we're on to him. He'll disappear and we'll never find him. So what's your plan? We use Santos to feed Volkov false information. Make him think I'm still following protocol, still cooperating with your investigation. Meanwhile, I go dark. Track down Volkov's network from the inside. That's insane. It's the only way. Emily, you're injured, exhausted, and you've already been shot once this week. You're in no condition to go after a foreign intelligence operative. Then it's a good thing I'm not asking for permission. She turned and walked back to the van. Briggs called after her, but she didn't stop. Inside the van, she pulled out Santos's phone and studied the encrypted messages. The software was sophisticated, but not unbreakable. She'd seen similar systems in the field. They relied on rotating encryption keys, time-stamped and synchronized across devices. If she could intercept the next key rotation, she could trace the signal back to its source. She called Torres. I need a favor. Does Briggs know about this favor? No. Then I probably shouldn't. Torres, someone is hunting me. They've got surveillance on my movements, a team ready to execute Phase 2, and I've got maybe 12 hours before they realize I'm onto them. I need your help. Torres was silent for a long moment. Then, what do you need? Emily explained the encryption system, the key rotation schedule. Torres listened, asked a few technical questions, then said she could crack it. But it would take time, 4 hours, maybe 5. You've got 3, Emily said. She hung up and closed her eyes, letting the exhaustion wash over her. Her shoulder was screaming now, the pain a constant throb that radiated down her arm. She dry swallowed 2 more ibuprofen and leaned back against the van wall. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Emily's blood ran cold. She typed back, Who is this? The response came immediately. Someone who wants what you want. Cross in prison. Justice served. But you're chasing ghosts, Emily. Volkov doesn't exist. At least not the way you think. Emily's pulse quickened. Then who took the photo? Someone who wanted you to chase shadows. Someone who needed you distracted while they cleaned up the loose ends. Emily's mind raced. If Volkov was a distraction, then who was the real threat? She typed, Who are you? No response. She tried calling this number. It rang twice, then disconnected. Emily stared at the phone, her thoughts spiraling. If Volkov was fake, if the whole threat was manufactured, then someone was playing her. Someone who knew enough about Cross's network to weaponize it. Someone with access to surveillance, to encrypted communications, to resources that rivaled a foreign intelligence service. Someone inside. Emily pulled up her contacts and called Briggs. He answered immediately. I need you to run a trace on a number, she said, and read it off. Briggs was quiet for a moment, then, Emily, that's my number. She froze. What? The number you just gave me, it's my bureau-issued phone. Emily's stomach dropped. That's impossible. I just received a text from my phone. Yeah. Which means someone's spoofing my credentials, or... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Emily's mind was already 3 steps ahead. If someone was spoofing Briggs's phone, they had access to bureau systems, which meant they were either inside the bureau or they had compromised someone who was. Where are you right now? She asked. Headquarters, command center. Check your phone, see if there are any outgoing messages in the last 5 minutes. She heard him moving, heard the sound of a keyboard. Then, nothing. My phone's been on my desk the entire time. Then someone cloned it. That requires physical access. And the only people who've touched my phone in the last 24 hours are... Briggs stopped. Oh no. What? Reeves. When he turned himself in, we confiscated his personal effects, including his phone. He insisted on making 1 call before we locked him up. I let him use mine. Emily's blood turned to ice. He cloned it. And now, whoever he's working with has access to my credentials, my contacts, my entire communication network. Briggs, you need to lock down your systems, now. Change every password, revoke every access code. I'm on it. But Emily, if they have my phone, they have your number. They know we're talking right now. Emily looked down at her own phone. The screen was dark, innocuous. But someone was listening. Someone was watching. She pulled the battery out and dropped the phone on the van floor. I'm going dark, she said into Briggs's phone before handing it to the agent beside her. Don't try to find me. She opened the van door and stepped out into the rain. The agent called after her, but she was already running, cutting through alleys and side streets, putting distance between herself and anyone who might be tracking her. She didn't have a phone, didn't have backup, didn't have a plan, but she had something more important. She had a name. Reeves had turned himself in too easily, had confessed too quickly, had given up Cross's network without a fight. At the time, Emily had thought he was just cutting a deal, trying to minimize his sentence. But what if it was more than that? What if Reeves wasn't just a corrupt agent looking to save himself? What if he was the architect, the one pulling strings, feeding information to Cross, using him as a front while building his own network in the shadows? Cross had called Volkov a ghost. But ghosts didn't exist. People did. And Reeves was very real. Emily ducked into a 24-hour diner, ordered coffee she didn't drink, and used the payphone in the back to call a number she'd memorized years ago. A contact from her time overseas, someone who specialized in the kind of information you couldn't get through official channels. The line clicked. Yeah? It's Carter. A pause. You're supposed to be dead. I get that a lot. I need a favor. What kind? I need everything you have on Special Agent Marcus Reeves. Employment history, financial records, travel logs, everything. That's a tall order. I know, but I'm good for it. Another pause. You still got that thing I gave you? Emily's hand went to the small silver coin in her pocket, a token from a black market arms dealer she'd helped extract from a compromised position in Syria. He'd told her it was good for one favor, no questions asked. Yeah, she said, I've got it. Then consider us square. Give me 2 hours. He hung up. Emily left the diner and kept moving, staying to back streets and avoiding cameras. Her shoulder was agony now, but she pushed through it. Pain was just noise. 2 hours later, she was in a different part of the city, standing in front of a storage facility. Her contact had sent the information to a dead drop, a locker rented under a false name, accessible with a code he'd texted to the diner's payphone. Inside the locker was a manila envelope. Emily opened it and started reading. Reeves's official record was clean. 20 years with the Bureau, multiple commendations, steady promotions. But buried in the financial records were irregularities. Large cash deposits, always just under the reporting threshold. Property purchases through shell companies. Travel to Eastern Europe that didn't match his official assignments. And then she found it. A photograph, grainy and old, showing a younger Reeves standing beside a man Emily didn't recognize. But the location was unmistakable. Kandahar, Afghanistan. The same base where Emily had been stationed, the same time period. She flipped the photo over. On the back, in faded ink, Reeves and Volkov, 2019. Emily's breath caught. Volkov wasn't a client. He was a partner, maybe even a friend. And Reeves had been running him as an asset for years, feeding him intelligence, using him to build a network that extended far beyond Cross's operation. Cross had been a patsy, a convenient fall guy, and Emily had helped take him down, clearing the way for Reeves to consolidate power. She'd been played from the start. Emily's hands shook as she pulled out the rest of the documents. Bank records showing payments to Santos, to Webb, to a dozen other contractors. Communication logs proving Reeves had orchestrated the ambush on Hale, the attack at the pier, everything. And at the bottom of the envelope, a handwritten note from her contact. Reeves is scheduled for transfer to a federal prison tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. If you're going to move, that's your window. Emily checked her watch. 4:47 a.m. She had just over an hour. She flagged down a cab and gave the driver an address 3 blocks from federal headquarters. She paid in cash, got out, and approached the building on foot. Security was tight. Guards at every entrance, cameras covering every angle. But Emily had been inside before. She knew the blind spots, the shift changes, the moments when attention lapsed. She slipped in through a service entrance using credentials she'd lifted from one of Briggs's agents back at the hospital. The guard at the desk barely looked at her. Inside, she made her way to the detention level. Reeves would be in a holding cell, waiting for transport. Alone, maybe. Or with a guard. Either way, she needed to get to him before he disappeared into the prison system, beyond her reach. She found the cell block. 2 guards stood outside the main door. Emily couldn't bluff her way past them, so she didn't try. She pulled the fire alarm. The building erupted in noise. The guards looked at each other, confused, then moved toward the stairwell to investigate. Emily slipped past them and into the cell block. Reeves was in the third cell on the left. He was sitting on a bench, hands cuffed, looking calm. Too calm. He looked up when Emily appeared. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out." Emily pulled out the Glock. "Stand up." Reeves didn't move. "You going to shoot me, Carter? In a federal building? That's bold." "I've done bolder." "I don't doubt it, but here's the thing. You shoot me, you go to prison, and Volkov walks free. Is that really what you want?" Emily's finger tightened on the trigger. "Volkov's not real." "Oh, he's real, just not the way Cross described him. Volkov isn't a client, he's a colleague. We've been working together for 7 years, building something bigger than Cross ever dreamed of. And now that Cross is gone, there's nothing standing in our way." "Except me." Reeves smiled. "Except you." The door behind Emily opened. She spun, weapon raised. Briggs was standing there, flanked by 4 agents. All of them had weapons drawn. "Put the gun down, Emily," Briggs said quietly. "He's been playing us," Emily said. "All of us. He's working with Volkov. He orchestrated everything." "I know?" Emily blinked. "You know?" "I figured it out about 20 minutes after you went dark. Torres cracked the encryption on Santos's phone. The messages traced back to a bureau server, Reeves's server." "Then arrest him." "We are. But not like this. Not with you holding a gun on him in a federal detention facility. That's not justice, Emily. That's revenge." Emily's hand trembled. She wanted to pull the trigger, wanted to end this, here and now, consequences be damned. But Briggs was right. She lowered the weapon. Reeves laughed. "Smart choice." Emily turned back to him. "You're going to prison for the rest of your life." "Maybe. Or maybe I cut another deal. Testify against Volkov. Give up his network. Walk away with 10 years instead of 50. You think I'm the only one who knows how to play the system? I think you're a coward who hides behind systems because you're too weak to face the consequences of what you've done." Reeves's smile faded. "Careful, Carter. You're talking to the man who has enough dirt on you to bury you twice over. That little incident in Kandahar, the one that got you declared KYA, I know what really happened. And if you push me, I'll make sure everyone else knows too." Emily went very still. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about. The civilian casualties, the cover-up, the report that disappeared. Cross protected you back then. But Cross isn't here anymore." Emily's blood ran cold. She hadn't thought about Kandahar in 2 years. Had buried it so deep she'd almost convinced herself it never happened. But Reeves knew. And if he talked, everything she'd built, the new life, the fresh start, would collapse. Briggs stepped forward. "Reeves, you're done talking. Guards, take him to transport." 2 agents moved in, hauling Reeves to his feet. He didn't resist, but he kept his eyes on Emily. "This isn't over," he said. "Yeah," Emily said. "It is." They led him away. The cell block door clanged shut. Briggs turned to Emily. "What was he talking about? Kandahar?" Emily didn't answer. She just walked past him, out of the cell block, out of the building. She made it 3 blocks before her legs gave out. She sat down on a bench, her head in her hands, the weight of everything crashing down at once. Briggs found her there 10 minutes later. He sat down beside her, didn't say anything, just sat. Finally, Emily spoke. "I killed 3 people in Kandahar. Civilians. It was an accident. We were under fire. I was trying to stabilize a wounded soldier, and I made a call, the wrong call. And 3 people died because of it." Emily, Cross covered it up, filed a report saying they were hostile combatants. "He told me it was the only way to protect me, to keep me from a court-martial. And I let him. I let him lie for me because I was too scared to face what I'd done." Briggs was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What happened after?" "The explosion. The one that was supposed to have killed me. It wasn't enemy fire. It was one of our own. Someone who knew what I'd done, who wanted me gone. Cross got me out, faked my death, told me to disappear. And I did." "Who set the explosive?" "I don't know. Cross never told me. But I always suspected it was someone in his unit. Someone who thought I deserved to die for what I'd done." "And you've been running ever since?" "Yeah." Briggs leaned back against the bench. "Emily, What happened in Kandahar was a tragedy. But it was war. People make mistakes. That doesn't make you a murderer. It makes me responsible. It makes you human. Emily looked at him. Reeves is going to use it against me. When he cuts his deal, when he testifies, he's going to bring it all up, and I'm going to lose everything. Not if I have anything to say about it. Briggs, you can't protect me from this. Watch me. Emily wanted to believe him, wanted to think that someone could actually shield her from the consequences of her past. But she knew better. The past always caught up eventually. Her phone, no, not her phone, she'd destroyed that. Briggs's phone buzzed. He answered it, listened, and his face went pale. What? Emily asked. He lowered the phone slowly. Reeves is dead. What? Heart attack in the transport van. Paramedics tried to revive him, but he was gone in minutes. Emily's stomach twisted. That's convenient. Too convenient. They looked at each other, the same realization dawning. Someone had killed Reeves, someone who didn't want him talking, and that someone was still out there. Emily and Briggs stood in the rain outside the federal building, watching the coroner's van pull away with Reeves's body. The red taillights disappeared around a corner, and with them went any chance of getting answers. Who benefits from him being dead? Emily asked. Briggs was already on his phone pulling up files. Everyone. Cross doesn't have to worry about Reeves flipping on him. Volkov, if he exists, stays buried. And whoever else was part of this network gets to walk away clean. There's always a trail. Not if you're good enough to erase it. Emily's mind was working through possibilities, eliminating dead ends. Reeves had been in federal custody, surrounded by agents, locked in a secure transport. Heart attacks happened, sure, but the timing was too perfect. Someone had gotten to him. Someone with access, with resources, with enough pull to make a hit look natural. I need to see the body, she said. Emily, the coroner already... I need to see it. Now. Briggs looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her tone stopped him. He made a call, pulled strings, and 20 minutes later they were standing in the city morgue, looking down at Reeves's corpse on a steel table. The medical examiner was a tired-looking woman in her 50s named Dr. Patel. She pulled back the sheet, revealing Reeves's pale, waxy face. Preliminary findings suggest cardiac arrest, she said. No visible trauma, no signs of struggle. Toxicology is pending, but based on what I'm seeing, this looks like natural causes. Emily leaned closer, studying Reeves's neck. There, a tiny puncture mark, barely visible, right at the carotid artery. That's not natural, she said, pointing. Dr. Patel frowned and pulled out a magnifying glass. You're right, that's an injection site, fresh, less than 2 hours old. Can you tell what was injected? Not without a full tox screen, but if I had to guess, potassium chloride. Causes immediate cardiac arrest, dissipates quickly in the bloodstream. Hard to detect unless you're specifically looking for it. The same thing Voss had tried to use on Hale. Emily's pulse quickened. Who had access to him in the transport van? Briggs pulled out his phone, scrolling through logs. 2 agents, Jackson and Rivera. Both veteran personnel, clean records. Check them anyway. Briggs made the call. 5 minutes later, he had an answer. Jackson's been with the Bureau for 12 years. Rivera transferred in 6 months ago from Homeland Security. Who approved the transfer? Briggs went quiet. Then, Reeves. Emily felt the pieces clicking into place. Rivera wasn't just an agent. He was a cleaner. Someone Reeves had positioned inside the Bureau to handle problems exactly like this. And now that Reeves was dead, Rivera would disappear, and the trail would go cold. Where is he now? Emily asked. Off duty. Should be at home. Should be? Briggs made another call, and Emily watched his face darken. He's not answering. Patrol unit is en route to his apartment. They waited. Emily counted the seconds, her mind running through scenarios. If Rivera was smart, he was already gone. New identity, new city, lost in the crowd. But if he'd made a mistake, if he'd left something behind, they might still have a chance. Briggs's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his jaw tightened. They found the apartment empty. Looks like he cleared out in a hurry, but there's something you need to see. 40 minutes later, Emily was standing in Rivera's living room, staring at a wall covered in surveillance photos. Not of her. Of Briggs. Dozens of them. Briggs leaving headquarters, Briggs at a coffee shop, Briggs with his daughter at a park. All time stamped over the last 6 months. They were watching you, Emily said. Briggs' face was white. Why? Because you were Reeves's insurance policy. If things went wrong, if the network started collapsing, he needed leverage. And you were it. But I'm not. I didn't do anything. You didn't have to. You just had to be important enough that threatening you would keep people in line. Emily walked closer to the wall, studying the photos. And then she saw it. In the background of one image, barely visible, a figure standing across the street from Briggs. Dark hair, mid-40s. The same build as the man in the Kandahar photo. Volkov. He was real. And he'd been in the city the entire time. Emily pulled the photo off the wall and showed it to Briggs. This was taken 3 weeks ago, outside headquarters. Recognize the location? Briggs nodded. That's the northwest entrance, the one I use when I'm meeting with... He stopped. With Reeves. Volkov wasn't just working with Reeves. He was watching him, making sure he stayed in line. Then why kill him? Because Reeves became a liability. The second he turned himself in, the second he started talking, he put the entire network at risk. Volkov couldn't allow that. Briggs was pacing now, his hands shaking. So what do we do? Volkov's in the wind, Rivera's gone, and we've got nothing but a wall of photos and a dead agent. Emily pulled out her phone. No, Briggs's phone, the one she'd been using since going dark. She scrolled through the photos from Santos's device, the surveillance images he'd taken of her, and there, in the metadata, was something she'd missed before. GPS coordinates. Not for where the photos were taken, for where they were uploaded. An address in the industrial district, an abandoned factory that had been slated for demolition 2 years ago, but never touched. That's where he is, Emily said. You don't know that. I know Volkov operates from places no one's watching, and I know he wouldn't leave the city without tying up loose ends. I'm a loose end. Then we call in a tactical team, surround the building, go in with overwhelming force. And he disappears through a back door while your team is still getting into position. No. This has to be surgical. Just me. Emily. Briggs, he's expecting you to come in loud. That's what federal agents do. But I'm not an agent. I'm a nurse. I'm nobody. And that's the only advantage I have. Briggs looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just handed her a fresh magazine for the Glock and said, "Don't die." I'll try. The factory was exactly what Emily expected. Rusted metal, broken windows, graffiti covering every surface. She approached from the south, moving slowly, scanning for cameras or tripwires. Nothing. Either Volkov was confident no one would find him, or he wanted to be found. Emily was betting on the latter. She slipped inside through a gap in the fence, moving through shadows, her weapon up and ready. The interior was a maze of catwalks and machinery, everything coated in a thick layer of dust. And then she heard it. A voice, calm and accented, echoing from somewhere above. "Sergeant Carter, I've been expecting you." Emily stopped, tracking the sound. It was coming from the second floor, near the old foreman's office. She climbed the stairs carefully, each step slow and deliberate. When she reached the top, she saw him. Volkov was standing by a window, backlit by the early morning sun. He was older than the photo, his hair graying, his face lined with scars. But his eyes were sharp, calculating. "You're persistent," he said. "I respect that." Emily kept the Glock trained on him. "Where's Rivera?" "Gone. I sent him away once his work was done. You won't find him." "I don't need to. I just need you." Volkov smiled. "And what will you do with me? Arrest me? I have diplomatic immunity. Turn me over to your government? I'll be back in Moscow by evening. Kill me? Then you're a murderer and everything you fought for means nothing." "Maybe I'm okay with that." "No, you're not. You're a healer, not a killer. That's what makes you weak." Emily's finger tightened on the trigger. "You don't know anything about me. I know you've spent 2 years running from your past. I know you carry the weight of 3 dead civilians like a stone around your neck. I know you think if you just save enough people, if you just do enough good, it'll balance the scales. But it won't. The dead stay dead, Emily, and you stay broken." Emily's hand trembled. "Shut up. Make me." For a moment, the only sound was Emily's breathing, harsh and ragged. Every muscle in her body screamed to pull the trigger, to end this, to make him stop talking. But she didn't. Because he was right. She wasn't a killer. She lowered the weapon. Volkov's smile widened. Smart choice. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a plane to catch. He turned toward the door. And that's when Emily heard the footsteps behind her. She spun, weapon up, and found herself face to face with Captain Briggs and a full tactical team, weapons trained on Volkov. "You're not going anywhere," Briggs said. Volkov's expression didn't change. "I told you. Diplomatic immunity." "Not anymore." Briggs held up a tablet showing an official document. "Your government just revoked it. Apparently you've become an embarrassment. They're disavowing all knowledge of your operations, effective immediately." For the first time, Volkov's composure cracked. "That's impossible." "It's done. You're being extradited to face charges in 6 countries, and you're going to spend the rest of your life in a cell." Volkov looked at Emily, something like respect in his eyes. "You did this." "No," Emily said. "You did this. You built a network on lies and fear, and it collapsed the second people stopped being afraid." 2 agents moved in and cuffed him. Volkov didn't resist. As they led him away, he looked back at Emily one last time. "You're still broken," he said. "Yeah," Emily replied. "But I'm working on it." 3 weeks later, Emily stood outside Northbridge Medical Center, watching the sunrise break over the city. The hospital looked different in the morning light, cleaner, less threatening. She'd come back to collect her things, to officially resign, to close that chapter of her life. But when she walked inside, she found Diane waiting at the nurse's station. "I heard you were coming in," Diane said. "Thought I'd say goodbye." Emily managed a small smile. "I'm not good at goodbyes." "Me neither, but you deserve one." Diane pulled out a folder. "This came for you, from administration." Emily opened it. Inside was a letter signed by the new hospital administrator, Voss's replacement. It was a formal apology for her wrongful termination, a request for her to return to staff, and an offer to serve as head of emergency trauma services. Emily stared at the letter, not quite believing what she was reading. "They're also offering back pay," Diane said, "and a full benefits package, and a public acknowledgement of what you did that night. Turns out saving a federal operative and exposing a criminal network looks pretty good on a hospital's resume." Emily folded the letter carefully. "I don't know if I can come back." "I know, but the offer's there. If you change your mind." Emily looked around the ER, at the beds and monitors, at the organized chaos she'd once found comforting. It could be that again? Maybe. If she let it. "I'll think about it," she said. She walked out into the parking lot where Briggs was waiting beside his car. He'd been reinstated, promoted even, put in charge of dismantling what was left of Cross's network. He had his hands full. "You okay?" he asked. "Getting there." "What are you going to do now?" Emily looked up at the sky, at the clouds drifting past. "I don't know. Maybe take some time, figure out who I am when I'm not running." "That sounds healthy." "It sounds terrifying." Briggs smiled. "You'll figure it out. You always do." Emily started to walk away, then stopped. "Briggs? Thanks for believing me, for having my back." "Anytime, Carter." She got into her car, a beat-up sedan she'd bought with cash 3 years ago, and drove. Not home, not anywhere specific, just drove. 6 months later, Emily Carter stood in front of a classroom at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, looking out at 25 recruits who were trying very hard to look like they weren't intimidated. "My name is Emily Carter," she said, "and I'm here to teach you how to stay alive when everything goes wrong." She clicked to the first slide. It showed a field hospital under fire, medics working on casualties while mortars fell around them. Combat medicine isn't about being perfect. It's about making the best choice you can with the information you have, in the time you have, knowing you might be wrong. People will die. Some of them because you made a mistake, and you'll have to live with that. One of the recruits raised a hand. "How do you live with it?" Emily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You don't. Not at first. But eventually, you learn that carrying the weight doesn't mean you have to let it crush you. You use it. You let it make you better, sharper, more careful. And you save the next person, and the one after that. Until one day you realize you've saved more people than you've lost. And that has to be enough. The recruit nodded, something shifting in his expression. Emily continued the lecture, walking them through triage protocols, field surgery techniques, the split-second decisions that separated life from death. She'd been doing this for 3 months now, training the next generation of combat medics, giving them the tools she'd learned the hard way. It wasn't easy. Some days the memories came back hard and she had to step outside, breathe, remind herself she was here and not there. But those days were getting fewer. After class, she found a message waiting on her phone. From Rebecca Cross. "My father's trial starts next week. I know you'll probably be called to testify. I just wanted to say thank you for keeping your promise, for letting me remember him as something other than a monster." Emily stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, "He wasn't a monster. He was just a man who made bad choices. We all are." She sent it and put the phone away. That evening, Emily drove to a cemetery on the outskirts of the city. She'd been here once before, 3 weeks ago, to see the headstone that bore her name. Sergeant Emily Carter, killed in action, a marker for a woman who didn't exist anymore. But she wasn't here for that grave. She was here for 3 others. 3 names she'd carried for 2 years. 3 people who died because of her mistake. She knelt in front of the first marker and placed a single flower. Then the second. Then the third. "I can't bring you back," she said quietly. "And I can't make it right. But I'm trying. Every day I'm trying." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain. Emily stood, brushed the dirt off her knees, and walked back to her car. She had work tomorrow. A classroom full of recruits who needed to learn how to save lives under fire. A job that mattered. A purpose that felt real. It wasn't redemption. Redemption was a word for people who believed in clean slates and fresh starts. Emily knew better. The past didn't go away. You just learned to carry it without letting it break you. But it was something. And for now, that was enough. She drove home as the rain started to fall, the city lights reflecting off wet pavement, and for the first time in 2 years, Emily Carter felt like she could breathe. Not because the weight was gone, but because she'd finally learned how to carry it. And that made all the difference.